All right.
We ready?
Yep.
Want to call to order this meeting of the Altoona Area School Board this August 13th at 7 p.m. If we could all stand for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call, please?
Mr. Baker.
Here.
Mrs. Bream.
Here.
Mr. Francis.
Here.
Mr. Hoff.
Here.
Mr. Hoover.
Here.
Mrs. Irwin Adams.
Here.
Mr. Johnston.
Here.
Mr. Cruz.
Here.
Dr. Malloy.
Here.
Thank you. I do want to make an announcement that last evening at 6 p.m. we did have an executive session regarding personnel. Moving along, hearing from citizens.
We're just going to just dial them up. Wait a second. How do we get a dial tone?
I thought we were going to do the presentation first.
We do the presentation first?
That was what we talked about.
That's what we talked about last night.
Let's do the presentation
Okay.
first. Sorry about that.
Might head off.
Would the board prefer to have the demonstration of the synchronous, asynchronous lesson first, or the public presentation, what we discussed last night?
Whichever you want to do first.
Okay, we'll do the public presentation. Okay, present the synchronous, asynchronous lesson, and then we'll go through
Okay.
all in one microphone.
Yes.
I'm standing in
Will this take longer than 30 minutes?
How long do you think it's going to take?
This 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Paul, are we sharing? Okay. Okay, good evening. Tonight we would like to present the 2021 proposed school phase reopening plan. About a month ago, we had presented to the board and the community with our initial plan. And since some situations have changed and we've reevaluated the district situation, we have a revised plan that we would like to present this evening. Whoops. There we go. Okay, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about trying to prepare our schools for the most safe and deliverable opening to all of our students, with our main priorities being the health, safety, and wellness of our students, our families, our faculty, and our staff, but also being able to deliver a comprehensive and effective instructional program to all of our students. Through that process, we've been monitoring and working with a lot of entities, health and wellness entities, the State Department of Education, taking advice from the Department of Health, as well as the CDC, and looking at how we can most safely, under the recommendations of the state, deliver a curriculum to all of our students. As we've moved through this process, we repeatedly have ongoing concerns. The fact that we are a very large school district, nearly 7,500 students, does present a unique challenge to the Altoona Area School District because of the size and the density of the number of students and how we are spreading them out over our 8 elementary buildings, our junior high school, and our high school. Some of the main concerns that we've encountered is the concept of wearing face masks. The mandate from the state is where face masks are required, where social distancing cannot be maintained, and making sure that we're able to space students out within the instructional spaces and our common spaces such as cafeterias and hallways. We are finding that is more and more of a challenge. We've sent out numerous surveys to our staff, to our families, to our parents, and to the community to look at preferences in terms of what community preference, parent preference would be for the opening of school. We've also looked at the comments that all of our families have presented. We've worked with building level committees and district level committees on trying to come up with the most comprehensive and deliverable program that we could deliver to all of our students. The expectation that students wear face masks where social distancing cannot be maintained is a major challenge. At this point, looking at returning all students to school, that would be a virtual impossibility for students to practice social distancing in all or any of their classrooms. With the number of students that we would expect to return to a brick and mortar traditional setting, our classrooms are not simply big enough and our students are not small enough to be able to socially distance at all times. That would necessitate the need for students to wear the mask pretty much the entire day. We're also anticipating possible issues with refusals, inability to provide a doctor's note, and policing of masking will be a major concern. Not only do we want our students to be safe, we want them to be comfortable. Putting students in a situation where it's an uncomfortable learning environment, especially for long periods of time, is counterproductive to productive education. Social distancing is a concern on buses, the classrooms, and especially following Department of Health and PDE guidelines as it pertains to those issues. The screening of children with temperatures on a daily basis and what that will entail in terms of when they are symptomatic and when they are running a temperature, the procedures and putting families in a position where they basically have to be on call at any time when there is a situation where a student is symptomatic and or running a fever. Staffing and scheduling of all the options that we're looking to provide, because we want to be as accommodating as possible, recognizing that our families have unique challenges when it comes to childcare, when it comes to the ages of the students, and being able to support their students if they are in a virtual environment. We want to be sensitive to that and recognize that that is a challenge, especially for our younger population. PDE this week just released recommendations, and mind you that we have been without guidance or recommendation from the State Department of Education until this point. This is really the first document that they've put out, other than mandates regarding face coverings, that has given us direct guidance on what they are recommending for your particular situation. If you look in yellow, our district falls under the moderate level of community transmission at this point. This is evaluated on a 7-day basis, and the recommendation for that would be a blended or fully virtual approach to education. Our goals, number one, with this plan is to reduce density in schools, maintaining proper social distancing, and making sure that our common areas such as cafeterias, bus drop-offs, hallways, and other areas are able to be safely maintained with directional movement throughout the building, as well as maintaining social distancing in a way that doesn't compromise the educational environment. To be able to produce smaller class sizes, anywhere between 12 and 16 students would be optimal. With those numbers, we would be able to maintain social distancing, allowing the flexibility and possibility for students to take mask breaking or not wearing a mask for the entire school day. And our ability to put fewer students on transportation and a continuity of education for the first 9 weeks. What we don't want, and we've looked at hybrid models, 2 days in, a couple of days out, we believe that creates a lot of issues for our families and parents when it comes to childcare, especially with our K-5 students. One of the proposals that we are looking at, and we're asking for board approval tonight, is a delay in the school calendar. Secondary students under our proposal would begin the school year on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. Elementary students would begin the 2021 school year on Wednesday, September 9th. Kindergarten will have parent conferences on Wednesday and then return to school full on Thursday, September 10th. Beginning August 28th through September 4th for 6 days, we feel very passionately about educating and providing our teachers with professional development and professional learning on best practices in delivering virtual education, in addition to dealing with the challenges that COVID presents and making sure that we understand the protocols and the safety precautions that we are going to follow throughout the school year. More information regarding schedules will be forthcoming as we were waiting to finalize our plan and not put out information that needed to be modified and updated from multiple times. Our elementary instructional proposal is three pieces. Our traditional students, all children in grades K through 5, will report 5 days a week. They will have full board education being transported to and from their school 5 days a week. Parents have been offered a virtual option and selected by families in grades K to 5. We will provide devices for all children choosing a virtual instructional model. K to 3 will be an iPad, and 4 to 5 will be a Chromebook. Parents are also have the ability to enroll in our Altoona Cyber Academy, and that can be a selection by families in grades K to 5. K to 5 will return face-to-face for 5 days per week. All elementary students returning to face-to-face instruction. During these critical years of K-5, where you're developing reading skills, mathematical skills, social skills, and all of the pieces that go into building the foundation for a positive student and a positive educational experience, we feel very passionately in prioritizing the K-5 students and making sure that they have a safe learning environment within our facilities in a face-to-face environment. All additional K-5 classes are going to be able to reduce class size to allow for social distancing. Grades 4 to 5 will move into the Altoona Area Junior High School. This will alleviate density and allow for distancing in the classroom and enable masking relief when possible. Based on all of the feedback that we've gotten from principals and teachers, we want to make sure that we are providing a deliverable instructional model where students are comfortable in that environment and we are not increasing the challenges that COVID has already presented to us. Some considerations: K-5 children, from what we have seen, struggle in a virtual environment, in a fully virtual environment. They don't have the technology skills at the earlier ages to be able to learn exclusively in that environment. Parent and family considerations was at the forefront when looking at childcare, transportation, and how they are providing structure and stability with their students and being able to provide them with the parental support to be successful in an educational model that is exclusively virtual. Substitute and guest teachers and additional staff will be secured and assigned to classes to reduce size. We'll be utilizing Seesaw as a platform along with Google Classroom, Seesaw in the K-2 areas, and Google Classroom 3 to 5. The week that was the first week of school will now be completely dedicated to staff development in these areas, along with best practices in delivering curriculum and instruction in the K-5 classroom, in addition to our teachers who will be delivering to the optional virtual. Live lessons will be provided daily to those students who are in a virtual environment. Teacher virtual teams will be assigned to one location where they can plan, meet, and support students on a consistent basis. Our secondary program will be all virtual for a marking period. Students in grades 6 to 12 will attend virtually for the first marking period. All students will receive a Chromebook. We're beginning distribution next week with our junior high school students and the following week with our high school students so that we can hit the ground running as soon as the school year starts. Access assistance will be provided to those with need. We'll be putting out a survey to all of our families where we'd like you to provide us information regarding device access as well as reliable internet access in your home. And we are fully prepared to provide you with that support if necessary, if you're not able to have that at this point. Students will be provided with both a synchronous and asynchronous instructional model on a daily basis. They will follow a schedule that will mirror their traditional setting, and we'll show you what that schedule looks like. Students who have elected the Altoona Cyber Academy will be enrolled in the academy, provided with orientation, internet accessible laptops, and aligned to the traditional curriculum setting. The advantage that our Cyber Academy gives you is an Altoona education. You're not going to take a planned packaged curriculum. You will have curriculum that has been designed by our teachers, delivered by our teachers, and models the in-house traditional setting curriculum. We do have expectations. All students will be expected to engage in synchronous lessons and complete all asynchronous instruction and activities provided through each teacher's Google Classroom. Specifically for our junior high school, we are proposing an orientation day. Even though we will be all virtual, we feel very, very strongly that it's important for our students to come in at one time to be able to meet their teachers, double check the technology devices that they have, get enrolled and signed up into their Google Classrooms, receive a course syllabus from their teachers, and in that one day provide any kind of materials or instructional support that they will then take home for the balance of that first marking period. We'll be providing them with paperwork such as Chromebook insurance information and then troubleshooting any technology issues that a student may have. So that way, when they are home and they're ready to start instruction, they are ready once again to hit the ground running. Our junior high school instructional virtual learning will look like this model. On Mondays and Wednesdays, students' class period schedules 1 through 4 will be delivered synchronously. So they will be required to get up in the morning. They'll be required to check into their homeroom virtually. They will then have synchronous lessons, live virtually delivered lessons, which we're going to show you an example of from periods 1 to 4. The balance of their day will spend in an asynchronous environment where they'll be working on activities from periods 5 to 8 engaging in communication with teachers, being provided individual support or small group reinforcement of what had already been delivered. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they will do the opposite piece of their schedule. Starting in midday, they will do periods 5 through 8. They'll work asynchronously in periods 1 through 4 and synchronously in periods 5 through 8. So they will follow the same academic schedule they would as if they were in a traditional setting, with time expectations as when they are to be online. We felt very passionately that expecting students to be synchronously involved on a daily basis for 6.5 to 7 hours a day was not only unhealthy for our students, but unrealistic in terms of the expectations. Therefore, we're looking at a divided schedule for our virtual instruction Mondays through Thursdays. On Fridays, asynchronous learning will occur in all periods. Professional development will be provided to our teachers, and the expectation will be that they are providing individual and small group support to students on that day. Our high school is opening virtually for all students due to COVID-related construction delays. The plan is in place to achieve this goal. A continuation of that virtual and synchronous and asynchronous schedule after construction completion through the first marking period will continue. We'll be delivering a rigorous curriculum as we would in a traditional setting. The pacing and the scope and sequence that we would normally deliver in a classroom will be delivered virtually. There will be expectations for grading, assessments, as if you would be in a regular classroom. Students will be attending live school. They will just be doing so in a virtual environment as opposed to a face-to-face environment. We also have an ACA option for those students who are choosing a cyber, more flexible option. And we currently have 140 students of our high school 9 to 12 enrolled in that program. This is an example of what that schedule will look like. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays will alternate between periods 1 to 4 and 5 to 8. The time expectations you can see on the right, where Monday and Wednesday during periods 1 to 4, they'll be expected to be online and engaged by 7:55. They will check into a virtual homeroom. We will be taking attendance and reporting attendance as we would in a traditional setting. That will go into our student management system and be logged and created as we move through. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they'll be working on their afternoon periods 5 to 8. That will begin at approximately 11:30 and end by 2:40. They'll be working asynchronously in the opposite times. Our expectations for students, attendance, they have to be engaged. The challenges of the spring, once we had access all figured out, we had students with devices, engagement was the next piece to try to get kids actively engaged on a regular basis. By having a daily schedule, we are keeping kids in the habit that they will need to have for school. I'm sure all parents can sympathize with the going back to school and trying to get kids on a better sleep schedule and getting them accustomed to getting up early and then working through their day. We want to establish those habits even in a virtual learning environment. They will matriculate through their daily schedule that when we are able to transition back into the building, they will seamlessly walk into that same schedule. Google Classroom is a platform that has proven to be effective, and our teachers are very well trained on and will continue to have professional development and professional learning on. There will be an expectation of completion of work and grading, not just pass-fail grading, traditional grading. Assignments will be awarded points. Points will be accumulated towards an overall percentage, and that will once again be a rigorous curriculum. There will be formative and summative assessments that students and parents are accustomed to, that students will be expected to study. They'll be expected to complete projects, collaborate, submit writings, edit, and all the things that we currently do now. Once again, engagement is very important, and we want our students to follow procedural routines, engage in those online lessons, engage in those collaborations and discussions. All of the things that we are promoting in our instructional model in the classroom will be delivered in a virtual setting, utilizing things like Google Meets, Zoom, and then expecting students to turn in assignments on time, completion of all assignments, and collaborating in parent group work. And we also recognize this requires support from us. So what that will look like, instead of going up and leaning over the student and providing them with individual support in a classroom setting, that will be a meet. It'll be an email. It'll be a phone call. It'll be a group study session. It will look different. It will also look a lot like the business world looks. Depending on what job you get into, that format of collaborative approaches to problem solving and production is out there in the business world now. We're going to model that in terms of how we're delivering instruction in the classroom. Our teachers have very strong expectations. There will be normal grading. Student daily attendance will be taken electronically. Lesson plans will be provided on a weekly basis where the expectation is 2 synchronous and 3 asynchronous lessons delivered and planned for every week. Our synchronous teaching and asynchronous teaching, even though they are different, as you can see, the expectations are the same. For assessment, direct instruction, demos, when we talk about a chemistry teacher possibly doing a chemistry demonstration that they can deliver in a flipped classroom or they can deliver live to their students. Discussions and group and partner activities are all a piece of both models. Transportation and food service are questions that all parents will have. Under this model, we will be able to reduce our bus loads from 48 to approximately 24. What that will allow us to do is to space students out 1 per seat and siblings and passengers on a van to 3. Siblings will be permitted to seat together, but masks are mandated on all district transportation. Food service. How are we going to feed students in a virtual environment? If you participated in any of our summer programming, we basically will deliver with a 5-on-5 model where we will be delivering for the number of students lunches and meals for 5 days on a regular basis, on a weekly basis to our families. We will limit meal service to avoid lines and limit close contact in our cafeterias at our elementary buildings and our junior high school. We will ensure social distancing. We will space out our students and schedule our students for food service so that they are not on top of one another and that they're able to maintain a safe eating environment while not having to wear a mask. Special education is a major question for a lot of our parents, and we are very sensitive to that. We have a large population of students that have IEPs and have specially designed instruction that we will deliver. We'll provide a free and appropriate education to all of our students. Ensure parents and or guardians are provided with the opportunity to participate meaningfully in their child's program and education. Special education or related services may need to be adjusted in a virtual environment through the IEP process, and the IEP team will work closely with the families to make sure that services can be provided and appropriately meet student needs. The virtual mode of delivery might include online learning, might include work packets, it might include some other appropriate learning that has been adapted to the individual student needs and their situation. To highlight, if you look at our classifications of students and what their needs are, we will be providing traditional education for any student pre-K to 12 that has autistic support. Our blind and visually impaired students for pre-K to 3 will be supported in a traditional model and virtually in a 4 to 12 model. Our deaf and hearing impaired students will be provided in a traditional K to 3 setting and virtually in a 4 to 12 setting. Emotional support classes will be available throughout elementary and virtually in our 6 to 12 populations. Learning support and developmental delay students will be provided in-house support K to 3 and virtually 4 to 12. Our life skills support classrooms and our other self-contained classrooms, such as multiple disabilities, will be available pre-K to 12. And we plan on having those programs housed here at the junior high school for our secondary students. So there will be a place here within the building, an appropriate location and environment where students that have specialized needs can thrive and their programs can be met. So in summary, grades K to 5 will be face-to-face instruction 5 days per week. K to 3 in their home school building, 4 and 5 at the junior high school. A virtual option for all students in K to 5 where students will receive a device, and the Altoona Cyber Academy is an option for all of our elementary students. Grades 6 to 12 will be all virtual for the first marking period. All students in virtual will receive a Chromebook. Synchronous and asynchronous learning schedules will be delivered. The Altoona Cyber Academy is an option for all students in grades 6 to 12. We will have a delayed start of the school year, with September 8th being the first day of school for our secondary students, September 9th, our first day for elementary students, and September 10th, our first day for all kindergartners. Quite simply, our mission is to provide the safest learning environment where all students can receive a quality educational program that we can deliver and is responsible to the needs and the safety of the unique situation that we are all in right now. Thank you. At this time, Mr. Caminiti is going to, the board had asked for an example of, we throw the words of synchronous and asynchronous around If you don't know what they are, or if you don't want more detailed of what that looks like, and for our parents out there, we want you to understand what is the instruction going to look like for your students in a virtual setting. So Mr. Caminiti, Mr. Neely, and a couple of others have put together a brief presentation. So please indulge us for about 15 minutes that we can present that to you so you can see what your students are going to be doing on a daily basis. Mr. Caminiti? Excuse me, it is Dr. Caminiti. I keep forgetting that. I apologize.
You're excused. Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming, and good evening. I'm Dr. Caminiti. I'm the technology instructional coach here at the Altoona Area School District. And like Mr. Hatch was saying, we've been talking about virtual learning since we've been put in this unique position. And really, what is virtual learning? And what we were doing in the springtime was what was probably known as crisis teaching. We were in a unique situation, and now we're in the area where we can provide the professional development to really show our teachers and give our students the proper education virtually. And what I'm going to show you is exactly what we can be doing in the classroom as well. So without further ado, we're going to look at the difference between synchronous and asynchronous teaching. And so when we look at synchronous, that's live instruction, but it just involves a couple, items: a computer, a webcam, a microphone, and then on the student end, the same exact thing. But it's still live teaching, just like if we were in the classroom. And in the 21st century, we have those unique capabilities to do that. So for the lesson I'm going to show you, it's on figurative language. It's a 6th grade lesson. And I'm going to be using a few different websites. One's Flipgrid, and the other one's going to be Edpuzzle. And Edpuzzle is an interactive video website. Now, interactive videos, and I know that there were a lot of videos that were put out in the springtime. There's a difference between students watching videos and interacting with videos. John Hattie, who's a researcher in all education, he has shown that interactive videos actually prove to grow a student's knowledge even more than a whole school year. So interactive videos are wonderful because it promotes that active learning. And I'm also going to show, how a teacher can introduce, their lesson. And throughout the videos that you're going to see, I'm just going to narrate through them as the unique capability we have here with YouTube. And where this computer is, I'll just narrate through them, and we'll watch the videos, and I'll tell you exactly what I would be doing or a teacher would be doing during an asynchronous lesson. So this is an asynchronous lesson. The student would be here first, and then they would meet me the next day live, synchronous. And so this is on figurative language. So first off, the student would go to Google Classroom. The really neat thing that Google Classroom has added is the ability to add emojis. And I know we use emojis a lot, on Twitter and in our text messages, but they can be very helpful to draw attention for students. And so in my Google Classroom, I would tell my students at the beginning of the year that when you see the computer emoji, that means that it's asynchronous learning time. And so that's why I have the computer emoji next to the topic. And then just like anything, we want to make sure that we're on the right week and that they know exactly what's going on as far as the day and is asynchronous. So that's always good to remind them. And I also like the number of the instruction. So that's what would happen in a Google Classroom setting. It's very simple and very easy for the student then to navigate through on their own and then turn in their work. And so this is basically how a student would join Google Classroom. They would go to the addition symbol at the top right-hand corner. They would have a class code from their teacher. They would then type in their class code that their teacher would give them. And then once they type in their class code, they would click join, and then they would have complete access to Google Classroom. And then from there, they would access what's known as classwork. Classwork is where all the learning and submitting assignments happens. And so here is my Google Classroom. Mr. Neely was kind enough to be my student this morning during asynchronous time. And what he did is he clicked on the teacher introduction for the lesson. And so this is my teacher introduction lesson. What I did is I used Flipgrid, and I recorded myself, and I added just 2 pictures. And the 2 pictures that I added were Edpuzzle and Flipgrid, because those are the 2 things that the students are going to be utilizing today. And so in this video, I'm actually pointing, you're going to use Edpuzzle first and then Flipgrid. And so it's sort of like an interactive introduction, for the student, so they can see exactly where they're going, what they need to do, and then how they're going to get there and basically submit their lesson. So an interactive video. So Edpuzzle is a fantastic platform. As a teacher, I can basically put any video on Edpuzzle, and I can track how long that student watched the video. So not just put a video out there and pray that they watched it, but as a teacher, I have that knowledge now to know if they watched it completely, somewhat, and it automatically will grade them. Like Mr. Hatch said, we are actually grading students this year in virtual learning. So with the grades and with Flipgrid, we're able then to hold students accountable, and we can also see if they've learned through the Edpuzzle and also Google Classroom interaction. So in this video, the teacher went through it. I'm sorry, the student went through it and navigated to this video on hyperbole. And so he watched the video, and at some point, to make this interactive, to make this an active lesson, the video will actually stop, and the student can't skip forward. Student can go back and learn something, but they can't skip forward. And that's the greatest thing about Edpuzzle, is that they can't just skip forward and say they watched it. So here we have a question during the video. So during the video, questions will arise during this active learning process. And then from there, they would receive a grade. And so that's active learning. So Flipgrid is the next concept that I want to show you. So with Flipgrid, it builds a sense of community. And that's something that virtually we're trying to do. It's very easy sometimes to build that sense of community with our students here, in the classroom. But building that sense of community virtually, involves those, students and teachers being in a collaborative online environment like Flipgrid. And so for this assignment, I'm having the student actually create, not consume, but create how figurative language, or create basically how they understand figurative language, and they show it through video and also through pictures and words that they can upload. And so as a sense of community, they'll just go in and they will build their Flipgrid. So here Mr. Neely is finding an image that deals with hyperbole, I assume, and then he'll save that to his computer. And then there's Mr. Neely right there. And then basically, just like I did in the opening induction, I added a picture. And here Mr. Neely explains exactly what hyperbole is, how his picture relates to hyperbole. And then from there, he can submit it, and then for me to grade at a later time. We cannot, because of the way we have it set up. And one thing that the students really like with Flipgrid is that they can take selfies at the end and then decorate, and so that's a really fun aspect of Flipgrid. Really, the engagement part is what we look at. I mean, there's the 4 C's, and then there's also the 4 E's. So there's a lot of different types of frameworks out there to keep those kids engaged. Flipgrid is obviously one of them, because it almost looks like a social media platform, but it's all educationally based. And the students can collaborate with one another and see everybody's work. So I hope you really enjoyed the Flipgrid example. So now we come to Synchronous. Now Synchronous is that live lesson. So this is going to look a little bit different. What I had is I had my good friend Kelly Livermore. She helped me out a lot, this afternoon when I was told that I I had to, come on today and show you an example. But no, I'm really glad to be here. But she helped me, and so she's going to be my student. She's recording her screen on her end at her house. And so what you're seeing is me, but at my house. So that way you can see what it looks like from the student perspective. And so this is synchronous learning. So for Google Classroom, instead of the computer, because the computer was asynchronous, I have a film projector camera, and that indicates to students that this is a synchronous lesson. So once again, it's that call to attention. It allows them, when they're scrolling through Google Classroom and they find the proper week and they find the right day, they see the camera and they know that this is a synchronous lesson. I need to concentrate on these 3 items whenever I'm with my teacher today. And so here we have Kelly Livermore and myself, and this is utilizing Google Hangouts. So on Google Hangouts, you can see you have a chat feature to the right. You have a video of me and the background right now of my wonderful house. And so what we can do here is I'm introducing what we're doing today, just like if I was in the classroom. So if I was in the classroom, I would do the same exact thing. Here's what we're going to do today. They're all on. I can see right here where it says people. It tells me exactly how many people are there. So I'm taking attendance, just like how we would do it each period. We take period attendance. And so from there, we would move on, and I would explain that I would like you to get on quizzes. Now, quizzes is a fantastic program. What I can do is I can have the student take a quiz, and in live time, I can see their results. Now, this learning, this learning model here is called the Fast and Curious, and it comes from what's known as Edu Protocols. And so Edu Protocols designed the Fast and Curious as a repetition. And so I wanted Mrs. Livermore to do is basically go through the figure of language vocab. Now we're looking at the teacher aspect. So as a teacher, I can see that right now she's at 75%. I can see how much she missed. I can see how much she has, got right. And at the very end, I get to see all the students' data in real time, and I can do what's known as data analysis. And then from there, that will drive my instruction. So for my next slide, I'm going to show you from the results, I will be able to then have proper direct instruction through real-time data analysis. And so this is what I'm talking about. I can see here exactly what she missed. So instead of running through the entire figure of language terminology, she had issues with personification. And so from there, I can then go ahead and teach direct instruction through data personification. And so here I would be directing instruction. You can share, using Google Meet, I would share my Google slide. And here I am providing direct instruction with personification. So it's actually geared towards what she missed. I'm reinforcing exactly where she was having that issue. And that would be like that with all the students. So if I had a pattern, I could hurry up and look and see what pattern and what exactly I need to review direct instruction wise. Then from there, I would have them then take the quiz one more time and see how they did. And so they would run through this quiz. And then from there, I would have a good idea of where the students fall. And so for the final activity, I would have them complete what's known as a thin slide. Now, a thin slide is a unique tool. So for a thin slide, it asks the students to insert one picture and write one word. And so since this is on figure of language, I want in real time the students to find a picture that describes some sort of figure of language that they've learned this week, particularly hyperbole. And so what Kelly's going to do is she's going to find a photo that represents hyperbole, and then she's going to write for that one word, hyperbole. And I have it going just a little bit fast because we would be here for a while if I had it playing out in real time. So she She wrote the, the hyperbole. Now there's also a teacher view. So what's going on during that time that Kelly was filling out that Google slide? So the unique thing about Google Classroom is that if students are on any type of Google product, I can watch them in real time. So while you saw just now Kelly filling out that Google slide on hyperbole, I can watch it not using a thing like Google Meet or here we're using Zoom. I'm actually watching it through Google Classroom. So through Google Classroom, I can click on Kelly's name, and then I can see in real time what she's doing. And if I think for a second that she may need help, I can then on the side, write comments to her and try to redirect her in the proper way, just like I would do in the classroom. As the facilitator, I would be walking around and monitoring student progress. And so that's the really neat feature, is that I can actually see what's going on in real time. And then finally, I would showcase student work. So as students turn in their work on Google Classroom, I can pull it up as a teacher, the finished product. And that's the great thing about showcasing student work, is that you can actually display it in real time. So at the very end, we come back together, we collaborate, and we show how we've mastered the topic. And that is basically synchronous and asynchronous learning. So I really hope that I was able to provide you with lessons that really, emphasize, the difference between the two, and also show that what we're doing virtually, we can also do in the classroom at the same time, and vice versa. What we're doing in the classroom, we can do virtually. And so I really thank you for your time, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to thank Dr. Kameny. In case you didn't notice, he doesn't really like what he does. But the whole concept of virtual and the PD that Nick and his team would provide is to give teachers a toolbox, a virtual toolbox of what is effective. They have instructional practices that they work on in the classroom that are their go-tos. And they also are encouraged to explore and experiment at looking at what works for individual kids. Online gives you really limitless opportunities in terms of video, instructional platforms. All of our teachers are going to have extensive training on Google Classroom. They're going to have extensive training on all of the extensions and apps that are available that coordinate and sync with their Google Classroom. So once again, just to kind of summarize, we had talked about, what the proposal was. Just want to ensure parents that we have spent a lot of time, days, hours, on looking at what is the most responsible decision for bringing students back to school and providing them with a learning environment that we feel like that we can deliver in a very safe and productive way. And I hope that parents understand that we are constantly looking at and considering the parent perspective, the student perspective, the community perspective, and our staff perspective. So I want to thank the board and our online community that are out there tonight watching. I know that we have some phone calls from some parents that had comments and questions. So I think we're ready to move to that, unless anyone from the board has questions about anything they saw tonight.
Yeah, I do, Brad.
Yes, ma'am.
The teacher can see exactly how the student has done on the test that they've gotten. Can the student also see that same information?
Well, that's a setting that you would share with the students. So there's a couple different ways that you can do quizzes and tests and things. One of the ways is through what's called Google Forms, and you can set it up so that it'll grade and then report back to the student. Now, all of the other students can't see your scores.
Right,
Yeah, it's confidential. So it can act as a virtual grade book, but then obviously our teachers will be putting those things into our grade management system on Skyward.
Brad, I had a question.
Yes, Dr. Malloy.
One thing on the slides that showed the, the plan to deliver instruction, on the special ed slide, it showed that children in grades 4 through 12 would be receiving virtual support. Well, K to 5 would have the option of being in school. So I would say look at that chart.
Okay.
The second thing is, how many students can a teacher work with at one time in this virtual setting? What we saw as an example was like a 1-to-1, but how many students can be worked with at one time?
Certain platforms have caps on numbers. For example, Zoom, Andy, it's 150, 200, I think is the cap on that. Google Meets is 250. So there are limits. I mean, obviously, it's like any other classroom. You want to be careful that you're not taxing the learning environment. So I mean, obviously, our classes are between 18 and 25 on average at the secondary level, depending on the course. Those would all be delivered in that environment. So the plan would be is that whatever your schedule is right now that would have been in a traditional setting, you will have that same schedule. So you will be with that 20 to 25 kids that you would have been scheduled with. So in that virtual environment or that synchronous environment, students will typically be with anywhere between 18 and 25 students.
Mr. Hatch, could you differentiate between virtual and cyber? Just because I
Absolutely.
think there's some confusion there.
So, and we've done a couple videos and stuff that we've put out on this because we do realize that it can be a little bit confusing. So we have run the Altoona Cyber Academy, which is an online cyber academy available to students in secondary for a number of years. We added elementary as an option last year. Now our cyber academies look a little bit different in elementary versus secondary, basically in the curriculum that's being delivered. Our K-2 Altoona Cyber Academy utilizes Edgenuity as the primary curriculum. It's a PAA core-based curriculum that is not necessarily directly aligned, but we supplement that program with aligned content with what we do in the classroom. Our 3 to 5 uses Odysseyware, once again, which is it is a program. It's a program that students will work through, and they would, as they progress through, they're monitored by the teacher. So the biggest difference is that you don't have direct contact with that teacher in a synchronous environment on a scheduled basis. The flexibility of the schedule with the Cyber Academy is that you can do the work in the evening, in the morning, on the weekend, where you're not going to have a scheduled time with a teacher where you're communicating synchronously in that environment. So it is more of an asynchronous environment with flexible scheduling that utilizes planned curriculums. Now, our secondary curriculum, we have spent the last couple of years completely modeling our curriculum after our in-house traditional setting. So our courses in our Cyber Academy at the secondary level look just like they would in a traditional setting. So a student could really seamlessly move from Cyber Academy, if they're in Algebra 1, to a brick and mortar back into a traditional setting and be at the same pacing guide, the same scope and sequences where they would have been had they been in a traditional setting. That's a major difference between secondary and elementary. The main difference between cyber and virtual is that in a virtual model, you're getting both synchronous and asynchronous learning on a scheduled basis. It will look most like school. It will look most like what most people think of school. When you're in a classroom for a designated period of time with face-to-face direct instruction from a teacher, and then assessments and activities and projects that go along with the learning.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Brad, real quick.
Yes, Mr.
I
Hoover.
looked at the plan. The one thing I didn't see, and please touch on this, we haven't talked about our pre-K yet.
Correct.
What about that? How is that going to be handled? I know that they have to deal with some very unique situations, and I was just wondering, how are we going to handle that? Because I know there are teachers watching now that work at that building that need to know what is going to be on the table for them.
Mrs. Sanders in the special education department, since that program is primarily a special education program, is going to address that question.
Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, Rick. So what we're looking at is we were considering having those children on site. We do have to keep in mind the class size. And we still were thinking about running the 2-day, 3-day, 5-day program. So that program won't look much different. We just have to figure out the virtual component for the parents who had selected that. But I don't see that program looking much different than it does right now.
Even with the unique needs of that population?
Well, if a child has a particular medical concern, then we need to take a look at that, and virtual might be an option for them. Social distancing is going to be a concern. That's why we have to monitor the class sizes.
Okay. Yeah, I just know you're dealing with a whole lot of other issues when we're talking about preschool. So, all right, well, thank you. And I'm sure I'll have more questions for you after the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, on this, on your plan,
Yes, sir.
in a 9-week period, kids gonna get only 12 and a half hours per subject of face-to-face learning. The other schools, Hollidaysburg State College,
Mhm.
they're 5 days a week, they're in school or synchronous.
No.
No AC.
They will not be doing synchronous. There's no way they can do it. So Hollidaysburg's running an A schedule.
No, I'm saying they're not, it's just synchronous and in school. So
It-
they're getting 5 days a week.
My individual students, if you're an A student, you will get education live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and every other Friday. Okay? On Tuesdays and Thursdays, you'll be completing work and activities that were given to you on Monday and Wednesday. You will not, because the same teacher that is delivering to you on Monday will have the B group on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My-
Why wouldn't they just do the same like, it would be the same teaching, it would just be a video of this teacher who do teaching here online, and it's the same, it's the next lesson.
Brad, hey, guys, I'm watching online here and so are a lot of people because we're Zooming. You guys got to use your microphones or we can't understand you.
Sorry.
So,
Mhm.
how I understood it, both Hollidaysburg and State College, 5 days a week learning. You either are in the classroom for the class or you're at home for the class.
No.
That's not accurate. My wife teaches at Hollidaysburg. That's why I know. What their motto is that she teaches 3rd grade. So she'll have her A group on Monday, her B group on Tuesday. The A group on Tuesday will be working on activities that follow up from her lesson that she delivered on Monday at home. And then same thing with the B group on Wednesday when the A group is back in school. They are then doing every other Friday. So you'll get a three days a week on, 2 days a week on the following week. Obviously your elementary looks a little bit different, and that does present challenges then. So I'll give you an example. The days that my children are not in school, they're at home by themselves. So, I mean, one of the things that we took very into strong consideration in looking at this is, especially with our younger children and families, the challenge that a non-consistent educational model presents to them from a childcare standpoint. Whereas if you know that your children K-5 are in school every day, you're able to plan for that. Looking at the age level of the students in 6 to 12, we would think that students at that level are more prepared to possibly be at home by themselves and have some more directed learning, independent learning, regardless of whether they have a parent that is there with them or not. Now, that's a big ask. We recognize that. That's a big ask to expect 6th graders through 12th grade, more of the 6th and 7th graders, to be that independently online with doing their instruction on a daily basis. A couple phone calls I just had from parents before we came to the meeting. This is truly going to test the collaboration of school districts, teachers, and parents, because it is essential that we have communication and collaboration with our families, that we are supporting them and they are supporting us in making sure that we are engaging students on a daily basis. That way, when we are able to transition back into a regular learning environment, that is seamless, that kids are building habits now that will follow through into a regular classroom. The other thing is our teachers are building now that toolbox that doesn't just go away when we're back into a traditional setting. We're talking about effective instructional practices that then carry into the classroom. One of the biggest successes of the spring was that teachers realized that they can. Those that maybe were afraid of technology or afraid of moving their instructional practice have now developed skills that will translate into the classroom for 2020 century, 2020 learning and beyond, which does translate to the workforce. So I do understand the concerns, and every district's different. I mean, Hollidaysburg is a third of our size. State College is very comparable. Community is very different. Their community is very different than ours. So one of the things that we have to look at is what is going to meet the needs of our community and our students in the best way possible, so that we're, once again, providing a responsible, safe learning environment for all of our students K-12. And that was our goal and our mission the whole time. When we originally developed the initial plan with looking at coming back, we were very passionate about that. Let's get kids back in school. Let's get back to some normalcy. That was one of my biggest things, not just in the classroom, but extracurriculars as well. Unfortunately, the situation medically is to a point where that's not really a wise decision in a lot of people's minds in the medical field. That, when we see uptick of cases and when we see what school reopenings have looked like in other states, It's scary, to be honest with you. And we want to make sure that we are being responsible and putting together a plan that addresses our students' needs in a safe, reliable way, as well as making sure that we give them, positive educational outcome. But and there's no great answer. There's no perfect answer. No model is perfect.
Why is this only 9 weeks? What's happening?
It's 9 weeks to start. I mean, because we don't know. In October, we may see a vaccine, and we may see a situation where it's like, okay, we can transition sooner. We can get vaccines out there. We feel like the risk isn't there. We get guidance from the state and the health Department of Health that says, we feel very confident right now that you can go back to a traditional model. Right now, they're saying, basically, you're making an irresponsible decision. Our recommendation, if you don't look at a hybrid and or virtual model for your kids.
It just seems like the other districts are looking long-term. If they can do this for the whole year if they want. We're going to do this for 9 weeks, and we're going to have this discussion all again because people are going to say they want to be back in school.
We're going to be constantly evaluating.
Why don't we just do what's right now and get the kids back in school and get teachers back in school? But that's what everybody wants.
I don't know that everybody wants that, and I think.
Well, yeah, I'd say by our numbers, you had 77 or 71%.
Correct.
Want to go back.
Guys, none of the online can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Turn that up, Nick.
Yeah,
if you can.
I don't know. Say it again, Ed.
Can you hear me?
A little better. Yes, thank you.
Get it right up to your mouth. All those ones are. Sorry about that. There might be. We disinfected them.
So anyhow, 71% on your poll of parents want to be back completely.
Mm-hmm.
I ran a little poll myself. 81% want to go back completely.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys put a lot of time into your plan, and last night I believed in it, but I think we just need to go back completely, and that's where I stand at this point.
Yeah, I respect that opinion. Absolutely. I mean,
I just have a comment on Eric's discussion, because I actually had a parent call me today. They didn't know what we were leaning towards, and they were concerned more about the hybrid model because on the days off, they're going to have to find alternate childcare for their kids. So they were actually being exposed to a lot more children than if they're in school 5 days a week. I mean, these were elementary kids, so, which I hadn't really thought about at the time, but they're exposed to the kids at school, and then the next day they'd be exposed to the kids at daycare or wherever they're, finding help when they're working.
Well, I have a question kind of along that line. Where do we stand with talking to the city of Altoona regarding the occupancy permit for the A building?
We will know whether they'll give us the exception Monday.
Okay, because that will make a difference. That opens up a lot more space.
We'll be able to have the teachers on site for the junior and senior high school, because we'll have the A building to use. And then likewise, the B building should be done end of September, and we'll have the full facility. Yes.
So that should enable us to bring the rest of the students back.
Well, but understand, you're going to have this building filled with 4 and 5. So we designed this for the first 9 weeks with the idea if something changes, we can then bring them back. And that was our purpose, was to have the flexibility to make those kinds of decisions. I don't know how long I don't know how long Hollidaysburg plans on being out. I know that they were planning on the same thing, the first 9 weeks, and then seeing what the situation is. Everybody realizes this could go long.
I just think their plans are better than our plans for long term. That's just my opinion. But I mean, the vaccine, even if we get a vaccine, it takes 9 to 12 months to get enough out there to vaccinate the people. And our kids aren't the first to get vaccinated. The older people are. So why do we even think October there's going to be a vaccine?
let me go the other way. What if it gets worse?
Exactly. So that's why I think we have to have.
And if it gets worse at this point, we already have our secondary students in a virtual model. We'll have Chromebook distribution to our 4th and 5th graders. If we had to move to a virtual model with our elementary, we're providing professional development and learning in the first 6 days of school, that they could very smoothly transition to that virtual model if necessary. So once again, we're trying to plan for every scenario because we just simply don't know. It's changed so dramatically in the last 3 weeks, which has kind of led us to this point. To to where we feel like that this is the most responsible and most, it will deliver the greatest continuity of education for our students when they're existing in one model, as opposed to bouncing back and forth with all the challenges it would create with our community and our parents.
I want to clarify something. When I say everybody back, that would be and would require everybody to wear masks all day long.
That is correct. If we
Right.
had
So-
everyone back,
So if we brought everyone back and if you chose to come back, you'd have to wear a mask all day, every day. If you did not want to wear a mask, you would do virtual. So under that circumstance, some people might choose virtual, which would limit the amount of people in school anyway.
it would. What it does create, though, is staffing and scheduling. Challenge would be a very mild word to say, because right now, if we look at this is deliverable. If I have to then staff and instruct in 3 different models, because of our elementary pulling from 8 different locations, is not just as simple as collapsing one grade level at each school to be able to meet the needs of that grade level at that school.
You're already saying you have to hire how many teachers to do the plan you're doing?
To be able to spread out elementary to the point at which we feel is safe for students, we'd be looking at an additional approximately 30 substitutes to do so, or 30 people that are either being redistributed from other positions or substitutes that would be filling those roles. That we've had a day to look at that. We've not really had the opportunity to vet that out the way that it needs to.
That's not the number that someone has been telling me.
So I have my reservations too, but I guess we need to know, are we having a discussion now or are we letting the public talk
Yeah.
first?
I think you want public comment first.
I thought we were doing public comments.
I would like to chime in something here real quick. What parameters is the board working with? We're having this special meeting tonight. Okay, we're looking at a plan to have children attend school for this next school year. Is the state requiring us to resubmit this plan for approval? What are the other parameters? Like if we're talking about social distancing, if you don't have the 6 feet of distancing, you're to be wearing a mask. And we're saying we're going to require a mask at all times for children attending school, unless they can meet the 6-foot distancing. But what are the parameters what are the parameters we are working with? Have we contacted the hospital to see if right now they are being overwhelmed with the number of COVID cases? I mean, you see numbers in the paper, but is our healthcare system able to accommodate what's going on in the community? So just what are we working with as a board?
At this point in time, we are seeing what is considered community spread, meaning that with the situation as it sits, the spread that we have is considered to be typical. We bring all the kids back and we have an issue. Obviously, we're going to create our own we could create our own community spike, which is the reason that we're getting the recommendations or guidelines from the state that at our level of community spread, we should be looking at either a blended or a virtual model.
Specifically, Dr. Malloy, when we checked with UPMC on Monday, they had 8 patients in ICU with 6 of them in critical on ventilators, and the escalation of cases that they're seeing on a daily basis. I know our number in Blair County was just, I think, 304 today is where we're at, currently with the number of cases in Blair County.
So this is the kind of information I know I would want as a board member to make a decision, and perhaps the parents listening in would want to hear this. This is why we're meeting here tonight, to discuss this children re-entering school.
Yes.
Yeah, would you, Brad, I think that information was very pertinent that you just put out. Could you please repeat what the hospital told you about the cases we have right now?
Sure. As of Monday, 8 in ICU, 6 critical on ventilators. Total number of cases in Blair County as reported today, I believe, is 304, and they are seeing increases on a daily basis. I know the number of cases statewide was there were 900 additional cases reported today.
Keeping that in mind, I'm just going to ask the question then, if we're seeing a spike like that, because that's the biggest number I've heard so far in Blair County, why are we thinking it's going to be safe to open up the grade schools, the elementaries?
What we're under the model that we're proposing, we do feel like that with the limiting the numbers, limiting transportation, limiting the number of kids in common areas, that we will be able to maintain social distancing in the hallways, common areas, in the classroom, to the point at where number reduction will allow us to do so safely with K to 5.
Brad, I know I know this meeting's probably going to go forever, but I got to ask this, and you've covered this, I'm sure, but I missed it. What is the class size that we're going to have for the elementary students? What is the class size? Is it only going to be if we can maintain the 6 feet apart?
We feel like at 16, it depends on the size of the classroom. So depending on the building, here at the junior high school where we have larger classrooms, you could have 16 to 17 students because we can space the desks out. At an elementary school where you have smaller classrooms, especially in some of our older rooms, you may be limited to 12 or 13. Also, the number of virtual and cyber requests fluctuate daily, with parents changing their mind or just now reporting to us what their intentions were. So that number is either adding to or pulling out. So assuming that that's a wash, we would hope that our max classroom size in elementary would be in the 16 to 17 range, in the minimum in the 12 or 13 range.
Can I make a suggestion then? I'm
Yes, sir.
sure a lot of people are watching and they're hearing a lot of this stuff for the first time and seeing this presentation. I'm wondering, I think it might be a good idea if we recirculate and send out what people think now knowing all this information. Were we planning on doing that to see how many people either change their mind on what they want to do? I just think there's a lot of information we're putting out right now that people did not have access to.
If that's what the board is asking us to do, we can definitely do that. I will tell the board, we're up against the wall in terms of preparation. The school year is set to begin. I mean, if the board decides to push it back a week, that'll help. However, in terms of planning and being able to deliver on day one of school, for all of the different models that we're providing, our administrative team, our teachers, our technology department, everyone across the board, busing, food services, there's a lot that goes into this. And we really need to have, I mean, we're working 14 to 16 hours a day now just to try to get preparation done. And that will continue, if not exacerbate, over the next 2 weeks to be able to make sure that we're delivering.
Rick, there is no feasible way for us to resurvey at this point. Changes have to come to us. We've been reaching out to parents for approximately a week and a half via phone, and we have done robocalls, we have done emails, etc. We've exhausted every way we have to contact parents to get the answers we have as of today. To be honest with you, to run another survey will take a week for the survey turnaround, and we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to retreat. We're going to have to go back and make sure everyone who didn't do the survey gives us another set of input.
Well, and I'm hearing you. And by the way, I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination anybody is dropping the ball here. I think you guys have done the yeoman's work. What I'm just saying is we're putting out information right now that people did not have. We're putting out numbers that people probably did not know at UPMC. I'm just saying, if people are seeing this for the first time, their attitudes might change. So I'm asking, what would it be? So they would have to contact the school in order to change what their idea of how this year is going to go for their child would be?
The other piece, Mr. Hoover, is we're then delaying parent preparation for what they need to consider for childcare and for provisions that they're going to need to make. Whatever the decision is, there's going to be preparation time on the parental end for that as well. So it's kind of looking at what is our priority, giving parents information now that they can address and deal with and make plans for, or, do we want to, let's say the survey alters 10% one way or another, does that change where we're at in terms of decision making? I mean, I think that's a consideration that the board needs to think about is will new survey results change our current status?
Well, that would, if we're talking about hiring people to teach, because we already put a number out there what we need. And if this information changes that, where is that money going to come from? If we need to get more teachers, I'm just saying we're presenting a lot of new stuff tonight that we have talked about a little bit, but I'm hearing it now, and I'm hearing some reticence from some board members. And I'm just saying, you know, things can change, and you know that, Brad. Day to day, it's going to change. So just some things to think about, guys. And I think Frank's got some great points.
Well, and I think too with this, we have to all as a board agree that the best educational situation for all of our students is our in-school model. However, in order to attain that, certain safety precautions need to be put in place, such as wearing of masks and also maintaining social distancing. I think parents need to know that as a school district, we want students to be in school, and we need to put a plan in place as to how that is going to happen. We're elementary, I think it is critical for students to be in school. I think their attention spans are much shorter. The fact that they can't focus as well as a more mature student, you know, is a big factor. I think school is the place for children to learn at the ultimate. And the teacher is the critical component in this. So we really need to get a plan in place as how we can get these kids back in school, you know, as safely as possible. Right now we're talking about elementary, K-5. We really need to look at secondary as to when can that occur. Like, if the community does show a spike in cases, an even greater spike, it will basically mean virtual schooling for everybody, K-12. But to have it for the secondary group, the junior high group, and high school, you know, what will we need to see?
Well,
We're going to need to see the county heading into the low arena, the low area of the occurrences, which means we have to fall below 5%, because right now we're between 5% growth in our cases. Our case numbers have doubled in the last week, 2 weeks. Literally, we were in a mid like 130s, 140s. Now we're over 300. It's taken a significant jump. Now, some of that's due to testing and other actions that are finally starting to catch up with the process. The thing is, if we bring all the kids back and we have any kind of a contagion situation where we have to basically shut the school down and go virtual for so many days or a week, the back and forth to the parents is going to be, and to the students, is going to be much more disruptive than just saying this is our solid plan that we feel we can sustain for 9 weeks, and then we can evaluate it in October as to how we're going to move forward. And Eric, you're correct. There's nothing stopping us from doing this for the entire school year. The only purpose of requesting 9 weeks to start is to give everyone in this room a chance to reevaluate this come October. Obviously, if our cases are surging, we're going to either keep this model or we're going to be heading all virtual. But if not, then we can start assessing whether we want to be bringing kids back.
I just think the asynchronous learning is cumbersome for the teachers. They have 3 programs they have to learn. They're going to put a lot of time in just making these slideshows for these kids. And then the kids have to get on, they have to upload stuff. That all takes time. I mean, the kids have to be kids. Some kids have jobs. They can't be 12 hours working on this stuff because of how cumbersome it is. I just think a teacher in the class, teaching the class, the kid can raise his hand, ask questions, do homework, and be done. Like, there's a lot of technology. That's, I mean, we have a lot of older teachers. That's going to be a lot of work for them.
Bottom line is with that, with the regulations and guidelines, with a school district as big as Altoona, there's no way we can possibly do that.
Yeah, they have to wear a mask the whole
Back
day.
in school.
I mean, some of my concerns are if we're discussing now, I guess, are the quality of substitutes that we're going to be able to get for the kids that we are bringing back. And I guess the other question was that I had is, do we have any data from any other states that have started school on, I mean, I know we see the worst case scenario on the news, but do we have any data to represent what's happening at other schools that have started to go back?
The issues we're seeing is a lot of the southern schools have gone back. Schools are going back virtual. Schools our size are going back virtually simply because of the sheer numbers and the difficulty dealing with social distancing and masks. We are seeing the calamities on the news as far as getting like hard statistics from other states that they've only been back 2-3 weeks maximum at this point. What I would like to do is I would like to get the public comment if we can, and then we can come back to this open discussion.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Feaster?
Yes.
This is Dr. Priyatov from the Altoona School District. You are speaking to the board.
All righty.
If you could give your name and address, and if you could limit
The PA Department of Health, Mr. Levine and Mr. Wolf decided to march along in protest with BLM, which says negative things about our police and our country. And our community of Altoona, our own Blair, over 1,000 people laid on that road for BLM against our own nation. But yet we can't come together for our kids that graduated and say congratulations and give them a graduation, all under the guise of COVID. But if we would have said it was a protest, we would have been able to congratulate our kids that worked extremely hard. Let's see what else. In 2019, 123 people died of domestic violence at home. Now, with school being shut down, so far, and I'm not just saying it's for school children, but 123 people have died, let alone injured. Well, with school out, who's looking over the kids? Because school is a big part of being able to find out what is going on in homes, especially when there are things wrong. I apologize. I'm just kind of flustered.
Take your time.
Mr. Levine, our health has taken his mother out of her nursing home 3 days before placing COVID patients in Pennsylvania nursing homes. That was Mr. Wolf and Mr. Levine. In our nursing homes alone, 5,037 Pennsylvania citizens died out of 7,474. That means 2,437 Pennsylvania citizens have actually passed. The other ones were from reckless behavior from Democrat leadership. Now, I've heard parents talk about because they have to work, because we all have to work, we all have to do things. We have to find where our children can go to learn. They were saying about dropping kids off Monday, let's say at my place, Tuesday at another, every children there, every day for the week. We didn't stop it. What we're talking educators. You're putting it in survive. We can't use COVID as an excuse. We have to do it. We have to move on. All these masks, I have on my phone very many clips of Dr. Fauci himself saying masks are a waste. They do not even stop 1% from stopping. It is a virtuous thing. It is nothing medical. So forcing our children to wear masks, to me personally, is insane and irrational. All of this is. The only thing I can say really is until the election time, nothing's going to change. And that's how it seems, because it seems the Democrat leadership, which Pennsylvania follows under, says unless President Trump is elected, it can be like this forever. And that's been noted. And it's sad that it goes through our community, and our community is tainted. That's all I really have to say. All these numbers that are brought up tonight, first off, my brother is an ER doctor, and I can run numbers and everything else. but I'd rather not. I just want to look at facts, and facts are the numbers do not say anything to stop. And there's no reason why our kids shouldn't be in school. And this is political, and this is how many parents see it. It's not because we're anti-maskers. Natural, the flu and cold this year, there are zero numbers on our health showing how many people died. Last year we had over, I think, 300 deaths. It's all under COVID this year. There's nothing else. Why is that? Let's harm our children words. ADHD. Every teacher knows this, but yet you're telling me if she sits in front of a computer, she'll be fine. That's not the case. I just hope that we look at our children for more than just a political thing, because right now, that's what we have done. I can't stress enough. I see everybody shopping and doing whatever they want, but when it comes down to certain things, we're falling short, and that's wrong. It's gut-wrenching wrong. Last year, the whole graduating class, everyone forgot it. Everybody. We all talked a good game, but no one did anything for them. But again, we could all stand on a road for people that hate our nation and down talk our police. That's all I have to say. But I hope that we wake up as a community at least, because we deserve better. Our kids deserve better. There's no such thing. All lives matter. That's my end. I appreciate all of your time, and I'm sorry I may come off wrong, but this isn't right.
Thank you, Mr. Feaster.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a wonderful night.
You too. Thanks.
Hello.
Megan Yost, this is Dr.
Yes.
Parental.
Hi.
Hi, Megan. If you could give us your name and address, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes if you could.
My name is Megan Yost, and I respectfully decline to give my address based on my nature of work and my husband's work.
Okay, you're
Is that
from
okay?
Altoona?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. The reason I'm calling, obviously, is my concern with the reopening. I have 4 children, 10th grader, 8th grader, 7th grader, and a kindergartner. Aside from my kindergartner, the other 3 will be doing virtual schooling, and I didn't sign up for that. I was sent surveys, 2 of them to be exact. I specifically requested traditional schooling, and I'm not understanding why that is not an option for those of us who requested it. I feel like the people who requested virtual are being accommodated, and we are not. I have a full-time job. My husband works full-time. I'm gone from the home 10 hours a day. I cannot parent my kids from work. I get it. They're kids. They need to be responsible, but they're kids. And that is a huge concern for me. So I just wanted to, express that concern. And I want to know why the in-person schooling was not an option, even though it was sent out in the surveys.
Okay, Mrs. Yost?
Yes.
The reason is the changes in the guidelines and in the numbers of cases across the state, and the ability to deliver instruction and have the social distancing and the proper use of face masks to ensure the safety of the children.
Okay.
Is the reason this is being considered differently.
Okay.
It's being considered.
I understand that. I'm an essential employee. My husband's an essential employee. I've been working throughout this whole pandemic. I know the risk, and we take precautions. My kids take precautions. And I honestly felt, and I don't know why, but I thought for a second my opinion would matter. My choice for schooling would matter, but obviously it doesn't. I understand what you're saying about the numbers, but I feel like there is a way that we can make our kids safe. My kids, like I said, they'll wear masks, they'll take precautions. They cannot sit at home for 10 hours a day while I'm at work. I have a responsibility at my job. I can't be trying to parent them with this online schooling while I'm sitting 45 minutes away. I don't work local. I can't work remotely. I work 45 minutes away. And my husband's schedule is all over the place. So I just wanted to voice my concern about the virtual schooling and just to let you know that that's just not going to work for my household.
She needs to know, though, that we still could send kids back. That's not off the table.
Right. This
Right.
is
And I'm speaking for a lot of the parents. I've spoken to many, many parents, and the virtual schooling is just not an option.
And we understand that, and please know that everyone on this board wants to get all of our students back as soon as we possibly can. But when Harrisburg sends out a directive and we're just running out of space because of what they're requiring us to do, and we want your students back in this school as soon as we can possibly do it, and as soon as we can, that will happen. We're restricted with what PDE is telling us.
That's not true either. We are allowed to go back to school as long as everyone is masked up. If everybody is completely masked, we are allowed to send our students back. There's recommendations, but we are allowed to do it.
Yes, we could vote for that. Yes.
That's right.
You're correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Joseph.
you.
Hello?
Is this Diane Roan?
Yeah.
This is Dr. Parental. You are addressing the school board for the Altoona Area School District.
What's that?
You have reached the school board. You are now speaking to the school board in public session of the Altoona Area School District.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. But yeah, I left a message. I just wanted to state my opinion that I would like the students to have the opportunity to at least come back, part-time at least for some in-person education and socialization.
If you could, ma'am.
Can you please state your name and your address for us, please?
Oh, sure. Diane Roan, 2923 Oak Avenue, Altoona.
Okay, thank you. No,
Thank you.
Go ahead.
You're welcome.
You can continue now.
Go ahead.
Please.
Yeah, so that's, I just kind of wanted to express my opinion on that. I have 2 students in the district. They're really looking forward to returning to school, after missing several months last year. Really excited to come back. Really looking forward to that. And I had heard that there was some discussion of not returning to the full day school session. So my children would like to come back. I support that. I think it's really important. Obviously we will need to take precautionary measures and everything, but I don't see why with proper preparation that would not be possible. I think that is definitely doable. At least when it's nice out, even if they have to, excuse me, even if they would have to have classes outside, maybe they could be socially distanced outside. Excuse me, I didn't know you were calling me. I need to get a drink. But yeah, I think there's options there, and I would just like to see some type of opportunity for them to come in, and they miss their teachers and their friends and everything. And I just think it's so much more effective for them for their education.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Roan. Anything
Thank
else?
you for the opportunity. Yeah, I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Carrie Gordy.
Carrie?
Carrie, K-E-R-R-Y. Come on, let's get the number right, Prieto. Hello, is this Carrie Gordy?
This is she.
This is Dr. Charles Prieto. We're at the Altoona Area School Board. You are open for public comment. If you could please state your name and your address. You have 5 minutes to address the board.
Okay. It's Carrie Gorty, 409 Riley Lane, Altoona, and it's 16601.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I was actually. This is Carrie Gordy. I gotta shut this off. I was calling with my son, but he left and went to a baseball game, so it's just me now. But I wrote notes down for him, and he wanted me to give everybody his opinion. He is going into 6th grade. He missed the last semester or the last marking period of 5th grade at McAuliffe Heights, and he was really bummed to miss that special year and have recognition and everything. And he was so looking forward to starting the junior high next, or I guess this month. And he wanted to let everybody know that normally he would not be looking forward to school, but he was really looking forward to going back to school with his friends and meeting the new teachers and actually going back into the junior high because he hasn't been there for a very long time since his brother and sister went there. And he was actually looking forward to wearing sneakers and normal clothes because he wore the uniform at McAuliffe Heights. So I wanted to give you his opinion, and then also my husband and I. We both work, so we're a little nervous about the virtual education. Obviously, he's only 12. We're a little bit nervous about leaving him at home to do this by himself some of the times. So, I mean, we're just hoping it is the 9 weeks, because if it's longer than that, one of us is going to have to quit their job. And neither of us want to do that. We need both incomes to help pay for we have 2 college kids, to help pay their rent and what they need at Penn State. So, I mean, this is going to be very challenging for us 2 working parents, because my daughter, she was a senior, she's going to Penn State on Monday, and my son moves the 20th, so Lucas is going to be home alone probably the majority of the day. So we are nervous about this. I understand it. I get it. I do see the increase in numbers, but I do also want to let you know, because I know this firsthand, some of them are not accurate. One of my son's friends, college kid, was tested last month. He went with his parents for them to get tested, and his antibodies tested, and it was a false positive. So some of those numbers are not accurate, and I do know that for a fact. So I do see the 300, or it increased drastically. A lot of them are from nursing homes, and some are inaccurate. But once they are positive, they do not take them off. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'm not worried about Lucas. We went and got a COVID kit. I bought all my other kids COVID kits. They have masks. They have sanitizer. My older kids have wipes. I'm ready to let them go back into the community, let them go to college. My kids each have 3 classes in person. I'm more worried about them getting than Lucas. Lucas is a smart kid. He bought his mask. We bought him sanitizer today. He's ready to go back. He's willing to wear a mask. He wants to see his friends. He wants to meet new teachers. He wants to learn. He wants to get the best education possible. And I know, my husband knows, it's at the Altoona School District. I asked him today if he wanted to go to private school. He said, no, I'll wait. He said, Mom, it's going to be A-okay. So I'm trusting you as a school board to make the best decision for my family and my kid. He deserves the best education possible, and I know it's at Altoona, because I look at my kid's grades at Penn State. He's doing fabulous, and it's because of your teachers. It's because of you. So please, please make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To transfer.
No, please hang up.
Does she have to hang up first?
I don't know. We're gonna find out real fast. I'm not getting a dial tone. There we go. This is what it started to do last time, if you remember.
I do remember.
Sharon, somebody asked me if it would be okay if we just ask if they're from Altoona, since it's on like a forum that could be accessed
Instead of the address?
instead of the actual address.
Okay.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. 81466.
That's what happened the last time.
Well, they probably thought we were calling an hour.
Yeah, an hour ago. Yeah.
Is this the last one?
No, there are 3, but I'm going to move to the next one for right now. This is Autumn Temple.
Hello,
Is this Autumn Temple?
it is.
This is Dr. Parental. We're here at the Altoona School Board meeting. This is the public comment section of the meeting. Can you please state your name and whether you live in Altoona? And then you have 5 minutes to discuss with the board.
Yes, my name is Autumn Temple and I live in North Altoona. I just have a couple comments and then I also have some questions. I have some grandkids in the district and my son just graduated last year. But I have a lot of interactions with parents. And what I'm hearing from parents is I think that they have the false misconception that you guys are going to go back to class, they're going to be reduced class sizes, and because of that reduced class size, those students are not going to be wearing masks the majority of the day. So my question is for the board to answer yes or no, even with a classroom of 12 to 15, and I think you might have said that the average would be 16, is that 6-foot social distancing going to be available where those kids will not have to wear a mask? Or is it a fact that the majority of the day they will be in a mask?
Our intent is to get the class sizes low enough that we can establish 6 feet social distancing so that they will not have to wear a mask the entire day. But whenever we cannot maintain 6-foot social distancing, yes, they will be in a mask. The bus, hallways, etc.
So in an average elementary now, 12 to 15 students in a classroom, what's the probability those students are wearing a mask all day? If it does not go below those numbers.
Those numbers are solid that there would be the ability to demask in class.
So with 12 to 15, they will be able to go without a mask.
If the teacher allows it.
If the teacher allows it, yes.
Okay, so it's up to the teacher whether the students wear a mask.
And a 6-foot distance.
And the 6-foot distance.
We have to be able to maintain the social distancing.
Okay. And then my other question I think that clarifies for a lot of parents. My other question is with students, if they have a doctor's excuse and they can't wear a mask, are they going to be permitted in classrooms where the teacher says everyone's wearing a mask, or will they have to go to another classroom?
With students who have a doctor's note regarding, because there are certain students that have conditions where they can't wear a mask, they would have to be what would be called super social distanced to be in the classroom. We would strongly encourage, if not expect, those students, if we couldn't maintain proper distancing, to be in the virtual mode.
Okay. And then
when you're looking at hiring subs, and I think you said something about 30 subs or something, and to get your numbers low and to spread those children out. If you go to an all virtual sessions because numbers rise or whatever, are those students going to be pulled from those subs and put into a regular district educator's classroom, or will they remain with the subs?
The subs are for the face-to-face. The subs will be partnered with an experienced full-time teacher, so that the planning and the preparation will be done in tandem. At least this is the plan as we've set it up at this point, with the idea that the students are going to be receiving an instructional model that's been designed. First of all, we have a fully articulated curriculum, and we have pacing guides, scope and sequence, and the structure is there. Also, our grade levels are consistent enough in their instruction that it's pretty much on pace across the district with the same materials, the same basic lesson content, etc. The idea of the subs, first of all, we are sending out a request to retirees that'll go out tomorrow morning, because we want to hunt for as many experienced teachers as we can possibly find to help us through this situation. That's our first step. And second of all, the subs are going to we're going to be bringing them in, we're going to be training them, and they are going to be partnered with the teacher who probably those kids are going to go back together with if it was to go to a virtual setting.
Okay, so if it goes to a virtual setting, everybody goes back to technically their homeschool teacher or their home class teacher?
That would be the plan, yes.
Okay, and then my last question, as far as the McAuliffe Heights program, if a student would choose virtual, do they lose their space in that program? Or if they even chose your Altoona Cyber Academy, do they lose their space in that program?
No.
Okay.
We're holding the space at this point, yes.
Okay, so they maintain their space for if they enrolled in like the Cyber Academy, remain there for the entire year, they can start next year with
Yes.
in their spot.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if we went back to face and they didn't come back, my gut would be we're going to hold the space. That's going to be our standard. But obviously, after this school year, if we're back to face, we're going to be looking at fulfilling the enrollment in that building. I mean, if they chose to do cyber for 2 years, we would not hold an open space for them for 2 years, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I absolutely, I understand that. I just wondered if during this time, if they're choosing to keep their family safe, or, there might be something going on in that home where the child can't go into the school, if they would be losing their space.
And that would be kept for them.
Okay, and then my other question is for the high school, why aren't those students having the opportunity for Zoom and face-to-face?
Well, we're doing Zooms and we're doing virtual in the high school at this point. The reason the high school in June, when we knew the COVID had caused delays in construction and we would not be able to open the high school on time, we went virtual with the high school in June. As it sits, what the question that's in front of the board right now is to virtual the secondary for the first 9 weeks because of the spike or surge in cases and the status of the county and the expectations and guidelines from the state as to how we have to social distance and wear masks.
Okay, my last question, and I know I've already said this, however, students that choose virtual but then have go to GACTC, well, they are virtual because they're the high school. What's the transportation set up for that?
We have that taken care of. We will be transporting them.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
I got it ready. I got it dial tone. I'm going to go back to the one that didn't pick up last time.
Hello?
Is this Sierra Fredericks?
It is, yes.
This is Dr. Charles Prietel, of the Altoona Area School District. You are addressing the Altoona Area School Board in public comment. Please state your name and where you live in Altoona, and you have 5 minutes to address the board.
Hi, this is Sierra Frederick. I live over on Union Avenue. My daughter will be entering Pleasant Valley Elementary School this year to be entering kindergarten. My first question is, can you explain why exactly the hybrid model will not work for the elementary schools?
Is when you're talking about kindergarten, the necessity for face-to-face instruction with emerging readers and emerging learners is crucial. So we want to have face-to-face instruction, if at all possible, with those younger children, which is the reason we have moved to spread the kids out into smaller class sizes to ensure that we would be able to give them that face-to-face instruction.
Okay, and have there been class sizes set for kindergarten at Pleasant Valley?
I'm sure we are somewhere between 12 and 16.
Okay.
It's all based on the size of the classroom. Normally, our kindergartens are running about 20 to 22 students in a kindergarten. They're not as big as our second, third, and fourth grade classes.
Okay. And I apologize if this question has been asked and answered already. I was putting one of my kids to bed. When will, what is the deadline for parents to make their final decisions between traditional in-school or virtual learning?
The deadline, well, we really needed to know.
At this point, obviously.
We needed to know last week. But obviously we are entertaining calls from parents daily.
Right. I did submit, my intention when asked, and when it was due. However, obviously with the newly updated guidelines and all of these changes, will there be, a new type of?
You should be able to. You'll be able to contact the principal of the school and discuss that with them directly, and I'll be taking care of it at the building level.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anything else?
Nope.
You have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Let's go. Shannon Betway.
Shannon speaking.
Shannon, this is Dr. Prietel. You're addressing the Altoona Area School Board. Can you state your name, your location in Altoona, and you have 5 minutes to address the board.
Yes, my name is Shannon Betley. You said next was address, correct?
No address.
You can just give us a general location in Altoona.
Sure. It's Beaumont Drive in Altoona. And
Okay.
next was,
You have 5 minutes.
oh, okay. So I'm just calling on behalf of my children. I have 3 enrolled in the Altoona Area School District. One going into the high school at 10th, one going into 8th, and one finishing their final year at Baker Elementary. And I'm just calling on behalf of them in support of having in-school education for this year. Fully supportive of wearing the mask, social distancing, doing whatever we need to do to ensure their safety and their health and welfare. But I do feel that it is a possibility and that it can be done successfully. And the alternative of doing everything virtual, I feel, will impact them negatively in the following years. This is a high important time frame for socialization, for hands-on learning, for interaction with others, for learning how to have a wide cultural diversity. And I feel that by keeping them out of the schools and having everything virtual, in the long run, we were going to impact this generation in a negative way. And so I just really want to state my case that I am fully in support of it. And I feel that it should be a choice. And if there are children and families not comfortable with it, I respect that decision just as much as I would like my words to be, respected and heard. So I feel as though it should come down to a parental option to make the best decision that we can for our children during this challenging time. So I think I'll be pretty much saying the same thing over and over, but I was calling on behalf of that school board to really listen to our desires. And I honestly think that the sporting should be treated the same way as the schooling. If there are parents willing to sign a waiver and willing to allow their children to participate in those activities, then I feel that they should be given that option. And I fully understand, not being able to have a crowd in the sense that it would be unmanageable to social distance and to adhere to the governor's and the state's guidelines. But I do feel as though that the children can safely do that without putting them in jeopardy, and that it should come down to a parental consent at that point.
We are planning to continue all of our extracurricular activities at this time.
Okay, that is great to hear. I just, I saw this message that our voices could be heard, and understanding the times that we can't be physically present at a board meeting. And it's harder to, obviously put your emotions through a phone, and they can be more easily read and felt in person. But in the current situation, I completely understand it. But, today's a heartbreaking day. We actually lost a family member in a nursing home today. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to see that family member since March. And the family member did not die as a result of COVID, but I fully believe that the lack of socialization and interaction led to a more rapid decline. It may not have, it's obviously not the cause of death, but it clearly had an impact. Not being able to see your loved ones, see your grandchildren, hear them play the piano in the facility that you're at. And it was very heartbreaking today to have to hear that through a phone and not be able to physically see them. So on top of all that, I felt as though I needed to be a voice for my children, that I really think that they need to be present in a school to learn. They're very strong academic children. And they rose to the challenge over the last, that last quarter. But even those smart academically children who have a great home support system and grandparents and family that are willing to be there, even they struggle, and even they lost a sense of drive and purpose in their schooling by not being able to be there with their teachers and learn with them hands-on. So I just really hate to consider an entire other school year of managing, because that's what I felt like we did. We just managed and got through it. And, I really want them to have the opportunity to learn in the best possible environment.
I appreciate your call.
Appreciate your
Okay,
call.
thank you for your time.
And sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So my words are a little shaky. You caught me right at a prime time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You have a good
Thank
evening.
you. You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Those are the call-ins. There's your public comment.
So if I wrote everything down correctly, there were 6 definite want the students back, whatever it takes, and 1 that is undecided. Is that what everybody else got?
That's what I got.
Okay, so I guess we're ready to move on now. Can I get a motion for,
All of these go together.
okay, I was just going to ask that. Administration recommendations. The first one is notice regarding return to school. The 2021 school year calendar updated with the change that we talked about tonight. Reopening plan proposal changes. Those would be the changes we discussed.
That's what we've been
last
discussing, yes.
Evening. And the resolution for authority, and that is for the district to make those changes as things change.
That gives us the ability, it gives the superintendent the ability to make changes as needed
As they come up.
as the situations change.
Okay. Could we have a motion
I'll move it.
and a second?
Second.
Okay. Comment, questions?
So this is based off the presentation that we received from Brad.
Yes.
Yes.
And if we vote no on this, are we going to talk about other options?
We will
Like
have
the
to.
option I want to just send everybody back traditionally right now with face masks. And if they don't want to wear a face mask, they can do cyber or virtual.
You already have that. That plan is already approved.
So if we deny this, that's what happens.
You already have a plan approved that indicates that there will be traditional, return to traditional setting with the option of virtual or cyber.
So it would go back to the plan that we approved in July.
There are no modifications to that plan. That plan is
I see what you mean.
With the exception of the high school students?
that was sort of, that's part of that.
We voted on that too, yeah.
So then a no vote reverts us back to the original
Original plan.
44-page document they submitted to the state, which would be in-person learning for all students with the exception of the students that can't come back because the high school's not ready. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay.
And the start date.
The start date,
Start date.
the start date would stay the same?
If the motion is denied, then the calendar is included in there.
Right.
So we would need a separate vote on the start date.
If you wanted to go with a different calendar.
Okay, discussion?
A few weeks ago, if you had asked me, I'd have said, okay, that's a good idea. Let's bring everybody back. And in lieu of watching some of the things that have gone on across the country with kids not being masked and different things and the COVID rise in those schools, I'm opposed to that completely. The blended, I was for that to go, begin with. But I think, like we said last night, one kid in a blended atmosphere that's unmasked or somehow catches the virus, he potentially has the power to pass that on to maybe 10 or 20 kids. And I'm pretty sure that I read that if you want kids face to face, let it be the K to 5 group. Bless you. Bless you. And let it be the K to 5 that we have right now. I think that's the way to go. As much as I agree, I want every kid in class and every kid that's got to be masked, and I agree with it should be masked. But when I think of an elementary kid that's not socially distanced with a face mask all day long, that's pretty hard. That's pretty hard for me. Second, older kids I can understand it, but the younger kids, it's going to be a tough get. So, and then we have to think about our teachers. We have teachers that, as we said last night, we have teachers that have some health problems, and some teachers that have kids that have health problems, and parents that have health problems that are living with them. So this isn't an easy decision.
No.
And, is there a right decision? I don't think there is a right decision. There's not a good decision in the bunch, but the best decision is what's on the board right now.
How can we?
If this won't pass, fine, and I'll go with everybody. But for me right now, I think this is the best get. And I understand that parents want their kids in school, and it's tough out there if you have to go to work. And but this is the safest, I think, for our community.
Can I just, let me piggyback that real quick. We not only have to worry about the students, this is the dilemma we face. And this is what keeps me up at night. We've got to worry about the students. We've got to worry about the teachers. We've got to worry about support staff. We've got to worry about the janitors. We've got to worry about the bus drivers. We've got to worry about everyone that is in those buildings. And then we have to worry about when those children go home. We've got to worry about all those issues. This isn't easy. And the two proposals we're looking at are not easy. And I know people are going to jump down me on this one. Just let me say it and we'll move on. Listen, we've got a group right here, and I've pointed this out before, and I know people are going to get mad at me. But if we can't even wear a mask to show people it's okay, we can wear masks during these meetings to at least symbolize this is what's going to be expected. If we can't do that, then how can we possibly expect our students and teachers and support staff to? The two choices are horrible. If I had a magic wand, I'd wave it and everything would go away. We would have no COVID, but we don't have that wand. We are facing two choices that are not great choices. And I agree with Dave. Of the two choices, the hybrid model seems to fit best to at least address all these issues.
Okay, in answer to your question about the mask, I'm sorry, Eric. We are all socially distanced in this room. That's going to be the end of my statement. I don't want to argue it. I'm just explaining that. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
How can we, as a board, vote to not let these kids in class and then turn around and vote for fall sports where football players, 100 kids on the football field, close contact, in the band, people playing instruments with spit coming out of the ends of that, with that spit valve, all these sports, and it's like a double standard. We have kids coming from Pittsburgh, we have kids coming from Chambersburg, bringing like all these people from all these other areas to Altoona in close contact with our students, and it's okay to do that, but we're not allowed to bring our kids back to school. That's hypocritical, I think.
It's a valid point.
I mean, if we're not going to bring the kids back to school, I don't think we should be putting fall sports back.
I agree with you. We should not put fall sports back. I agree.
But I'm voting for both. I mean, I'm voting for fall sports and I'm voting for kids in the classroom.
You know, what I heard tonight, parents need a babysitter. Mom's working, the dad's working, and I'm hearing they want to send their kids back to school. This is probably one of the toughest decisions that I personally ever made. There are some tough ones over the years. In my opinion, if the kids did come back, if they would, I come in tonight, I got my temperature taken, take the temperature, have the mask, have the hand sanitizers, have the social distancing. You've got to do, masks are required. But this is tough. This is a tough one, folks.
I don't know that it's just the parents who are looking for someone to take care of their kids. I think they are concerned of what their children are missing. The socialization that they have with the other students. And I think the kids want to come back to school. I know I've talked to some little ones that they want back at school. They want to be with their friends and they want to be back in this environment because it's structure in their life. It's what they're used to.
And teachers want it, and I'm talking to teachers, they want to come back. They miss their kids.
And I think students learn better in person. It's just
I
great.
agree with you 100%. And it's choice. If a parent does not feel comfortable sending their child to that environment, by all means, there's virtual and there's cyber. And if a parent chooses that, that is absolutely their right.
Now, just remember the possibility of one kid having the virus.
But we're doing that with the elementary
Right,
kids.
we are, but we're a little more safe. The atmosphere is a little more safer with the elementary.
I know that, but you also said that you believe they'll be unmasked. I don't. I think the elementary kids will have to stay masked up the whole time too.
If they're
I don't
socially
think we'll get
distanced,
that. I don't think we'll get that distance.
Well, I think
Or
we
the
will.
teacher will say they don't want that.
Well, if the teacher says that, then I'd beg that teacher to let the kids take their mask off if they're socially distanced.
I mean, I think it's a huge decision and it's very difficult that it's weighing on our shoulders. You know, I think it is imperative that the elementary kids get back. I think that's probably the most important, but I see the need for the secondary kids to have routine, to have consistency in their lives, and to have the socialization, as well as the learning. I don't think that it's a thing of a babysitter. I do think that people are impacted because if they are working and they have to worry about their kids being at home, even at the secondary level, or if they have to find childcare for their elementary kids, that's just added stress on them at an already stressful time. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety with our economy and the way people's jobs are going, and that's just adding to the stress at home. And if kids are home, I mean, we're seeing a spike in domestic issues, that sort of thing. I don't know. I'm like completely torn about how to make this decision, because I basically think that we are making the best worst decision that we can, because none of them are a good decision.
I agree. You know,
So
what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no,
Go
no,
ahead. I'm sorry.
no.
Go ahead.
So if we bring the kids back and this doesn't work, plan B would be
I mean, we'd have to go virtual again.
have to go virtual.
I mean, but that's an option no matter what. I mean, we might have to go virtual if we have a spike, if we have a case.
Well, it's, I'm gonna say it again, you know, you have the moms working, you have the dads working. You know.
Well, I'd like to weigh in a little bit too. I think it's a very, very tough decision. If we're looking what is best educationally for kids, it's our in-school model, without a question. I think one of the things that we may want to talk about, we're talking about K to 5 offering in school. Basically, all of the secondary would be virtual to start out. But we're also talking about this occurring for 9 weeks. Could we look at a shorter time to review this? If we do take a precaution by trying to keep a large group of students from being together in a school setting, you know, for safety reasons, do we have to wait 9 weeks to evaluate this? Can we evaluate it in a month? And see if it's
We're not here.
We just lost you, Frank.
We lost you, Frank, for about a minute there.
Okay, what I'm saying is, do we need to wait weeks to see if this secondary model is working? Can we do it in a month? Can we look at numbers? Can we look at where numbers are with the people who are saying in elementary K to 5, they want their child in an in-school model? What's it going to look like by grade, by school? You know, some classes may have 20 kids in them, some classes 18, because there are parents who have chosen a virtual model. We need to look at secondary and getting these kids back to school as soon as possible. So I'm saying, if we go with this plan, don't wait 9 weeks. Look at it next month and see where numbers are in the community, you know, in terms of COVID cases, and work with the hospital. Try to do this with as much precaution as possible, but know that kids must get back to school to learn. I mean, that has to be our goal.
Well, here's what I have to say. We're a public school. We should be face to face. If they want and fear for their children or their self, they could do virtual or cyber. But we are a public school and we are a face to face school, and that's how we should be.
If we weren't offering other options to parents, I could see where there was a big issue, but we are. And the parent has to make that decision. I mean, that's their responsibility to do that for their child. And we've heard from, you know, a good many parents tonight that want their students back in school.
You know, the social aspect for the secondary, what's that type of social aspect you're going to have when you're masked and you're 6 feet away? You know, what are they going to do? They can't go and hug each other. You know, they can't give high fives. So after school, they take their mask off and they, you know, go and play football, go play basketball, or do whatever they do, go play video games. You know, there is a possibility that, you know, this thing could spread big time. You know, you're taking a chance. And we're taking a chance with the elementary as far as I'm concerned, but that's the best road to go. So I just think we got to be, you know, everyone feels bad for the parents that have to work. Everybody feels bad. I do. You know, in our situation, we have grandma and grandpap that can help out. You know, some don't have that. So, you know, it's just hard. And what's the decision? You're right. The best worst decision is what we're coming up with. And I feel terrible. And I just hope to God this thing goes away. We get a vaccine, and just like, yeah, we may not have it for years, but the thing is, we got to be careful. We have to be very, very careful.
Dave, to your point though, you said that, you know, after they leave the school, they can take their masks off and go play video games or, you know, some football or whatever they're going to do. They can do that if they're home doing virtual or cyber also.
But I don't think they may be confined to the neighborhood kids, where they'll be exposed to all the kids from all parts of the city, is what I'm saying.
I don't know, kids move around quite a bit.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree
Well,
100%.
if they're all coming to one place, which is a school, there's a greater chance of spreading it to more people than if they're going virtual. I mean, that just makes sense.
Yeah, this decision, it's tough, and it's been weighing on all of us, and you can tell just by we're all kind of down. I think it's a really tough decision, and one of the things I kind of came to grips with today was, you know, what's the balance between safety and education? You know, because we would always say our number one goal here as a public school district is to educate the students, make sure they get the best possible education. However, as somebody who was in the classroom for 2 decades, I know that if something bad happened in the school, if there was an intruder, a bad guy got in the school, our first role is to keep the kids safe. And that's kind of what brought me around to my line of thinking on this. Our buildings are fortified. We have security plans in place to keep bad stuff out. And by allowing everyone to come back, we're throwing open a new kind of security hole, a risk of letting in a virus. That being said, we do have a duty to value what the community is telling us. And the community is telling us, according to the surveys, that about 75% of the parents said they would like their kids to come back. We already knew that the high school was not going to be ready. So grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 were already going to be in a virtual model. We were able to make some tweaks to this plan with the help of the administration to get K to 5 back. I'm not even sure that I think that's super safe either. I think that they're just bringing a lot of kids together could lead to some issues. Really, the group that's being affected here are the grades 6, 7, and 8, because the high school, there was no choice. We knew they were going to be out for a month anyway. So I kind of agree with, like Kelly said and Dave said, it is a tough decision. It's not a great decision, but I think this is a great compromise. And I think one of the things that we've seen that this board is able to do is compromise. And I think we've really taken safety, parent opinion, teacher opinion, and all those things together. But ultimately, we do have to consider safety here. And I think the secondary model with electives and students moving around, you go from a spreader event to what could become a super spreader event very, very quickly. So I think that this is the best choice. I'm in favor of this plan, the K to 5 being in person and the rest being virtual.
But our job is to educate kids, and I think with this model, we're not doing our best to educate the kids.
I think it's the best given, in my mind, it's the best given the environment that we're in right now. That's where I am.
But my concern is we're going against what the parents are wanting. And I think the parent is the last say when it comes to their child. I mean, that's the person that loves that child. That's the person that doesn't want to see anything bad happen to that child. And they're telling us overwhelmingly that they would like their students back in school full-time, face-to-face.
Sharon,
That's what I'm hearing from
Again,
parents.
if they could do cyber or virtual.
Right, yeah, if we didn't have that, then I would say that's, it's a
I
deal
agree.
breaker, but we do,
Sharon.
and the parents have that choice.
Sharon, we also have to consider our staff, which is our teachers. And I saw our teacher surveys too, who, by the way, are parents of students in our district. And the last I looked, it was over 50% that they were uncomfortable with the situation of face-to-face teaching. We are in a sticky wicket here. I understand that. No matter what we decide tonight, there aren't going to be people cheering us. I get that. But I agree with Mike. The compromise that has been made here, the way to educate students is exactly what, that's the only way. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to vote that we just go willy-nilly and say, everyone in school put on a mask, social distance, and that's it. Because the guidelines, I don't believe, can be met. But I'm just saying, why don't we take the vote here and move on and go?
So are we saying that the elementary teachers, K to 5, are not that important to us, so we're just throwing them into a possible coronavirus? Is that what we're saying? And then the other teachers are better to us?
Absolutely not.
Okay, then that whole statement didn't make sense to me.
Here's the situation from my perspective, if I can add.
Yes.
I have been through all of the discussions. I have sat through all of the webinars with the superintendents, with the listening to the governor, listening to the legal beagles on all this. The issue comes down to, if we bring them back and we set up traditional and we say, okay, we're gonna come back, and we have 3-4 cases, and we're going to shut the school down for 2 days, and they're going to go virtual for those 2 days. We're not really in a virtual mode, and we've just abandoned our traditional mode. There's not going to be a lot that we're going to be able to do to make that virtual mode successful. And then we're going to go back. And then if another issue happens and another set of cases occurs, then we're going to go out again. And the problem is going to be the consistency education is going to be non-existent. And so the level of the education that everyone is striving to achieve is going to be undermined, because are we in school? Are we out of school? Or what are we preparing for? And that is what the CDC and the Department of Health restriction are saying. Well, if you have a case, we're going to follow the CDC guidelines. Well, I'm looking at these CDC guidelines, and they're saying you're going to shut the school down for a day. You're going to shut the school down for 2 days. You're going to shut the school down for a week. You're going to shut the school down for 2 weeks. The problem is now our staff has to prepare this and put these pieces together, and it's very inconsistent. And how are we going to get any level of quality if we end up locked out totally, which could happen if we have a massive spike? And I understand it's gloom and doom, and it's my look at this is, I have to think about, how can I deliver the most consistent education to kids? I, number one, am a proponent of bringing every child back every day. I have been every kid in every seat 5 days a week. But at the same time, I can't just turn a blind eye when we know we're going to have to police these masks, which is not going to make for a happy campus or happy campers. And then we're going to have to deal with the fact that when we're dealing with spikes, or the kids that have fevers, et cetera, now we've got to quarantine them. We are creating quarantine rooms. We're creating quarantine tents. We're going to have COVID monitors. And the issues come down to, when you get into the secondary, it's going to be exacerbated. We're going to be moving 500 kids per grade level. I mean, we pretty much have 600 kids in a grade in junior high as it is. High fives, 575, 85, 90, 600. We're going to be moving, and we're going to have 100 kids in cyber. So we're going to have basically 500, 450 to 500 kids. We're going to be moving around the building. It's going to be challenging, difficult, and it's going to be high risk. And I get that. And that's the reason I brought this up to Sharon last week, that we needed to have this discussion. And I appreciate the parents, and I appreciate everybody's opinion, but I just want people to understand why I brought it to the table, because I did not want to spend 2 days of my life dealing with this, except for the fact it's very important that we're all on the same page and we have a strong consensus, because this is not easy.
There's also some obstacles with moving 4 and 5 over here. Like I mean, it's going to be difficult to get them over and then to turn around and get them back to their schools. The transportation is all going to have to change very rapidly when we decide to bring all the kids back. And there's still the case, if we're bringing in the majority of 4th graders and 5th graders, that we're still going to have like over 1,000 kids in this building. They're all still coming through the front doors and leaving, even though they won't be intermixing as much as the junior high kids. So, I mean, we still have a lot of kids in one building. I mean, so it's just, and I know I already said this, but I do question the quality of education with the substitutes and the fact that that's just an added expense on already expensive, you know, safety precautions. I mean, I don't know what the right decision is, but I know I'm like completely torn about it.
You know, we're between a rock and a hard place here. So when you have second period class leaving and third period's coming in, is the teacher required to clean that room, disinfect the desk?
To disinfect the classroom properly takes approximately, you have to wipe all the desks down and it's going to be about 10 minutes. Is that correct? And that comes out of instruction time.
So would they have 10 minutes? Probably not.
We would be disinfecting the classrooms. We would be using the cold and flu season protocol after hours every day. You're not going to be able to disinfect between classes because just
I'm looking at the books. I have my mind made up. I don't know. I think I might go the other way. It's dang if you do, dang if you don't.
I agree.
There's no 2020 hindsight. That's the
And-
problem. If
Right.
we knew for sure. but
And
we
the
don't.
other, well, there's an obvious question too, and this may have been laid out, but who's responsible for checking temperatures? Who's responsible for disinfecting? Is that all on the teacher? Should
The
we have
teacher-
enough custodial staff to do this?
The
Should it be
teacher-
an attempt before they get on the bus?
We'll be checking temperatures once they're in school. They'll be masked until they have been temperature checked, and the temperatures will happen in homeroom. Temperature check will happen in homeroom.
Dr. Fauci said today that the temperature check doesn't mean anything. After he said a couple months ago that it did mean something, he's reversing what it today it doesn't mean anything. So
I mean, I think
I don't know what
we're just going to have to take our best precautions. I mean, kids are going to have to use sanitizer when they're coming into the classroom. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be the same as if you're going out to the grocery store.
Who's going to check the bus drivers? Are they being checked at the station?
Staff is being paired up and monitored, and they monitor every morning. They'll be checked every morning, and likewise, the bus drivers will be checked before they get on the bus.
Just to be safe.
Let me ask you
I
this
don't know. You
here.
know what? Just Ed and I, whatever decision we make, we're going to get blasted. So it doesn't really matter.
What's a
You know,
reliability?
whatever. If you think, to me, I agree with the what's on the board right now. I guess we should vote on it. You know,
I
how
have
much
one
more?
question before we
Okay,
vote. Go ahead. You said 302 cases is what we have in Blair County?
304.
Okay,
Yeah.
304. How many of those are active cases? Because I watch them add those numbers on every day, but a recovery is never taken off. A death is never taken off. A recovery is never taken off. It just keeps growing and growing. So
That's
that would be
that is an
important to
additive
know.
number.
that's a what?
That is an additive number. I mean, that's going from March.
From day one to now. So we obviously don't have 304 active cases in Blair County.
Not at this time, to my knowledge. And I feel very comfortable that's an additive number. The thing you have in Blair County in comparison to Center County. Center County had that huge spike when they all came back from spring break and they had all those issues. And they were leading the curve with the number of cases, the cases per thousand, et cetera. Well, now we're ahead of Center County in our cases per thousand. Whereas they have effectively stem that tide to the point where they had that surge, they were ahead of everybody else, but then they just sat there.
Yeah, but
We
they're
are-
not
we are-
testing as much in Center County. If you look, we are testing more in Blair County than they are testing in Center County.
And
I
I
don't
think
have-
their numbers are about ready to change. I've heard some stories today. I
I'm
think
sure-
Center's heading.
I'm sure that I'm sure the numbers are heading different directions.
I would like to ask a question to Elizabeth. How much legal exposure does the district face with the decision we make tonight?
That's my question.
Well, you have a recommendation pending, which indicates that due to Blair County's status as a moderate risk, there should be blended learning, which requires a reduction of students in the buildings in order to enable social distancing. That is what the guidance that came out on Monday states. And in order to afford the social distancing, my understanding is that's what the building change, the change that's being proposed tonight is what will enable the school district to afford the social distancing that's required. The guidance also indicates that the local state health and safety plan doesn't need to be updated so long as you're going to require and comply in full with the masking order, which is what leads to I think someone stated earlier, it's if we don't do this, it's all masks all day. And it's important to note that the guidance that's been issued since July has recommended that the children be afforded frequent face covering breaks, but face covering breaks cannot be afforded unless you have the 6 feet of social distancing. And so in the absence of it, and in maintaining the masks throughout the course of the day, if you had everybody continue, you would not be complying with the most current recommendation of the Department of Education jointly with the Department of Health. You have a greater degree of exposure if you're not going to be complying with the current recommendation. That's the best that we can tell you. Whether you'd end up with an actual finding of liability, whether any case asserted against you would get off the ground, it is going to remain somewhat unknown based on circumstances, based on the application of immunity statutes, which we haven't really seen play out yet. There is a belief that the Political Subdivision Tort Immunity Act may provide some immunity here, but the further you get away from complying with recommendations, the further you're going to get away from having those protections. And as time progresses, we may see other changes where they adopt there may be statutes adopted that afford the school district's liability protection. But until then, what you have is a circumstance where the current recommendation you're facing right now, 2 weeks before school starts, is to go into this blended learning model, which is to do the reduction of students in buildings in order to afford social distancing, which not only allows social distancing, but it also allows a greater degree of latitude to allow the face covering breaks that have been recommended from the outset.
Yeah, it's tough. My 20 odd years on the board, I've had some tough decisions, some really tough personnel decisions, athletic decisions, new school decisions. And this, by all means, is going to be the toughest. And whoever votes whatever way they want, I don't think it's a wrong vote anywhere. I think everyone has every point that was made tonight for every aspect of what you want to do is right. I don't think there's a wrong vote. I really don't.
Should we go ahead and take a vote? Any more comments?
Yes, I moved it. And I think Kelly seconded.
No, we already have the motion. I just wondered if everyone was done with their comments. I want to hear what everyone has to say. Now we're going to do all four, which is changing the start date of school. Is that still acceptable to everybody?
You're gonna
Push
you're
it
gonna
back
take
one
out
week.
you're gonna do the separate for the what we're gonna do.
Oh, I had the motion included all
Oh,
four of
okay,
these
okay,
items.
that's fine.
Unless somebody wants something pulled.
Nope.
We're good. Okay, could we have a roll call vote?
And this is on.
This is option A.
Exactly what we saw tonight.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Breen,
No.
Mr. Francis.
Yes.
Mr. Hoff,
No.
Mr. Hoover,
Yes.
Mrs. Irwin Adams,
No.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
No.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Frank?
Can you hear us, Frank?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
yes, Dr. Malloy.
Yes.
5-4, it passes.
Okay, so can I ask you a question now?
Sure.
The people who passed that, I would like them to do a motion and suspend all sports at this time.
I like to make a motion to suspend all sports at this time.
And member of the athletic committee, I solely agree with what Eric said. You know, it would be it'd be bad to bring other kids in from other areas and collect this.
Are you giving a second to the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can have a question now about
Yes.
that. So,
Comment, question?
we're talking about athletics, or we're talking about all activities, just so we're clear.
Oh, I would think.
All
I didn't do
activities,
it.
all activities. Yeah, I say all
Band,
activities,
everything.
fine. That's the way you want to play ball. I'll play ball that way, all activities. All activities is what I'm saying.
If
But
so,
then,
could
but then they
We're
can't
doing
take
it
that
as well.
course.
So all activities.
Yeah.
That's the way we're going to play it. That's where we're going to
Yep.
play
Does
it. all
that
activities.
include the band? then?
Yep, everything.
Okay, I agree it should include the
but can we
band.
legally do that if that's part of the requirement of the course? Can we strip that from them? I don't know.
It has, it has to. What you're doing is you're eliminating their ability to do any kind of rehearsal after hours of performance.
They can still do their stuff during school, the band during school. It's still,
They can do band during school. They can do whatever they can do virtually. Yes.
We have a meeting Monday, right?
Well, the issue with sports,
We can't do this Monday, could we?
There's a motion on it. Let's vote on
There's
it.
a
I just
motion
want to
and a
vote on
second,
it, so
yeah.
let's do it.
I mean, but we're bringing elementary kids back and we're social distancing them. The kids are social distance in some of these sports. And I've seen the kids in band wearing their mask the entire time, except obviously when they're playing their instruments.
The whole idea of this is to have the people that voted for the K to 5 to say that we're going to do everything to stop all social activity. That's what Ed wanted us to do, and that's what I'm going to do.
I
You
know, but
because
I don't,
because
I don't
yeah,
think
vote
that
for it.
we have
Joan,
to.
I agree with you. I mean, if you want to come at a way to get to the 5 of us to make
No,
to
I'm just
embarrass
saying.
us, like some other people do on the board to embarrass
You think
people.
that's what I'm doing, but you
I
agree
do.
with Eric. You
I-
sat there and agreed with
I
Eric.
did, and I said everything should be suspended. There should be no sports. And I said that. I said to Eric, and I agree.
I just,
What are we doing?
I don't think that we're making this decision in the right mindset tonight. It's like we're making it because we're at odds with one another, and it's,
No, I'm not.
it's
no,
not-
I'm not gonna, unless, I'm not gonna, I
I'm
want this
telling
voted
you,
on.
if we are not allowing those secondary kids to come to school, they need some sort of outlet.
Then-
And that outlet is the band and the athletics.
Then let's vote on it.
Well, wait,
Let's
wait,
vote.
wait.
Vote
I want to make sure everybody knows that when I said that, I said I was for full sports.
I know you
am
did.
too.
Okay.
Yeah, but
You were
you
saying
were insinuating because I don't want, or any of us did not want to bring everybody back, that how could we not want to bring everybody back and be for fall sports? That's what you're insinuating, correct?
I said that, yes.
Yeah, that's what you're insinuating. So you're saying you guys want fall sports, but you don't want everybody back, right? That's what you're accusing
Correct. I
us
was
of.
saying-
That's what you,
Can I
that's
make a
what
statement?
you-
Can I make
you're
a statement
accusing us
too?
of that. So I'm gonna stay on because I agree with my vote that K to 5.
Sharon,
Can
So
I make
that's how
can
I
I make
feel.
a statement? Can I make a statement too?
please.
I know I'm remote here.
Yeah.
Let's calm down a little bit, first of all, but people need to see some normality during this thing. Okay, we're looking at modifying the way we're bringing kids back to school. That isn't how we want school to be. We want all kids back in school. This is a way to help slow down community spread of COVID, period. Okay, people want to see some signs of normality during this. They can't go to a football game. They can see it on a virtual situation or listen to it on the radio. It's some part of normality for the community. Okay, this isn't about what we vote on here as board members, because we're voting with information, and we're making the best decision that we think we can make. But we have to agree to disagree. And we made a vote here, 5-4, to let this plan be put in place. And to eliminate these fall sports is taking another thing away from the community. Let's try to think of this as in many, many different aspects. This is something that kids really need to have to think, yeah, there's a normal life out there still, and we're going to get back to it. But give them some hope. Don't take everything away.
You don't have to, you can choose in your vote how that is. But like Eric said, you're allowing other schools from higher COVID areas to come in here and play against our players with the potential of giving them the COVID.
Listen,
Right now,
I am not upset with the decision that was made here tonight. I voted no. I'm not upset with the fact that K-5 is coming back to school and that all the kids are not coming back to school. But I do not think that we are making the best choice in the interest of our kids. These secondary kids, they have been practicing sports for a month and a half now. They have already been exposed to these kids. And I think by taking this away, it's just a slap in the face. One more thing that we're taking from these kids, and they need some sort of socialization.
So when they start interactive with other teams, the COVID, just like he said, you're bringing teams in from Pittsburgh or Harrisburg or wherever you're bringing them back from, with a big COVID population. So our kids will be at risk for COVID. So.
And it's a contact sport.
But parents are parents are making that choice. We're signing waivers and allowing our children to participate in those sports. They have already lost their spring season. Now we're taking away fall season from them too. I'm just saying, like, it's too much for these young kids.
They might not get graduation. I mean, this could go and repeat what happened last year. So I agree with Kelly. We have to do something.
Can I?
You just said
share
lost the possibility of getting COVID from other teams.
That's
why you shouldn't have athletics.
Is
what you said.
May I?
Said there was a possibility of getting COVID, just like there is to bring kids back to school. That's my point was with saying you can get the COVID transmission from sports. If we're gonna take that risk with sports, you may as well take the risk with bringing all the kids back. That's what I'm saying.
Well, then basically you're saying let it come in, let the COVID come in from all over. It doesn't matter.
I still think younger kids.
Yeah.
Which one?
Shock.
We have taken precautions. We have created structures to ensure that our kids are safe in practice. They have been practicing. There's a difference. There's a difference between 40 kids on a varsity football team and 40 kids in JV, or 25 kids playing soccer, where you have a closed community that we have taken precautions so that they could have summer practices for the last month and a half. As it sits right now, there's no sports until the end of this month. And the recommendations are, well, Mid-Penn has canceled to the end of September. We might not see sports until January if we follow the governor's recommendation. The thing is, we've created an environment where these kids can actually participate in a safe manner. We have protocols, we have procedures in place to ensure that they use their masks, that their temperatures are taken, they're following all they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's from a safety standpoint in these groups. We have had only two issues that we needed to investigate so far, and we've had hundreds of kids involved. I get the issues and the discussion, But the difference is, as we created a controlled, safe environment, or we're working to create a controlled, safe environment in the elementary school, we have done that in sports. Phil has put the time in to ensure that the kids are as safe as possible. Is it perfect? No, it's not. And when you say they've been working for a year and a half, no, some of these kids have been working for 5, 6, 7 years to get where they are. And I think having them have that opportunity to at least practice, even if they're just practicing with our own kids, is better for them from a social standpoint than having them not have that opportunity.
I am in total agreement. I had this discussion with a parent today and I said, I don't care if we don't play other teams, as long as we are practicing and our kids are getting physical activity, because otherwise they're sitting at home watching TV, playing electronics. They're already going to be on their screens.
That's fine. Let them play amongst each other. That's fine. I agree with that. I think what this whole thing's about is the 5 of us that voted for the K-5 were going to be wanted us to be on the same page with athletics. And personally, I agree with you. You know, you bring other teams in, that's more of a chance to get the COVID. And you're right. So we shouldn't have athletics.
No,
Is what you're saying.
you need athletics.
I got a procedural question here. This wasn't on the agenda. So what I'm asking is, we're trying to propose a vote on shutting down extracurriculars. Can we even do that without public comment and the public having a chance to comment on it, since it was not on the agenda?
Didn't Rick try to remove me from the negotiating and it wasn't on the agenda?
I have,
So
first
we
of
have to
all,
open it
There
up.
are people listening, so if they want to call in, let them call.
we do have
Just remove it.
the revisions of the athletic program on the agenda as part of this evening, because obviously Phil wants to be able to continue his off-season workouts.
The resocialization plan that's on here talks about exactly what you're saying. I'm sorry. The resocialization plan that's on here makes allowances for, even if PIAA would cancel the season or fall sports or move it to after January 1, that we would continue to allow our fall and winter teams and spring teams continue to practice and do everything informally, even in a virtual environment with their secondary. Just to kind of highlight the resocialization plan, essentially what's out there is that if they do any kind of postponement to January 1, they'd be looking at modified seasons, with the winter season going first, your fall season in the middle, and your spring season moving into like May and June. So that's all contingent upon what happens with PIAA in a conversation. As it sits right now, we are in a voluntary only until August 24th. And at that point, we would then be starting our season in terms of heat acclimatization for football and getting things ready for the fall season. They'll start camp.
And that's
correct.
that's another 3 weeks.
That's pending no reversal of decision from PIAA or a mandate from the governor as opposed to a recommendation. So the resocialization plan looks at contingencies. If fall sports would be canceled, can our athletes continue to prepare, to train, and work just within the school district community to continue to work towards those seasons that would hopefully happen starting January 1.
I don't think anyone is trying to shut down sports or activities. I think it's great for the kids. I think the concern is we're not letting the kids come back to school, but we'll let a contact sport continue. And I can see the frustration there. And I mean, I want these kids back in school. I want these kids to have their activities. I want them to have it all.
The whole thing's a contradiction.
Yes.
We won't allow inside meetings of more than 25, but we'll bring 2,000 back to school. I mean, if you think about it, the whole thing is, there's a lot of contradictions, and there's a lot of, well, that doesn't make sense if you're going to say this and then say that. We got to try to make decisions that are in the best interest of kids. And sometimes that means separating out the academic piece versus the athletic piece. And I know you'll make a responsible decision.
The thing that I heard was our solicitor say that we need to put forth a plan that meets state guidelines for social distancing, period. And we did that in this modified plan. Had we let every child come back, we would have created a legal exposure for the district. Am I right, Elizabeth?
You would have certainly increased it because there's an existing recommendation that you do what you did tonight
Right.
based on your risk level.
And the other issue is with the extracurricular, the sports activities, they are following social distancing guidelines. Okay, so my vote was because I didn't want to create legal exposure for this school district. And my experience is, as an elected official, is if you get a recommendation or an opinion from your solicitor and you take action contrary to that, you're exposing yourself personally. So you decide when you make a vote, if you're so strong of an opinion towards the way you're voting, that it's worth that. And I just listened to what the solicitor said and based my opinion on that, period.
So Elizabeth, what he's saying that if we make the wrong vote, we are all personally responsible for that legally?
No, you're not going to be personally responsible, but the exposure increases when you are disregarding a recommendation. That's a basic result or consequence of ignoring the recommendation. We're in an extraordinary time where we're getting recommendations instead of direct orders, and clarification that the recommendations aren't mandatory, but they're strongly recommended. And it's putting all of you in a very difficult spot. But to answer a straightforward question about what does exposure increase or decrease when you don't follow a stated recommendation, the answer is going to be it increases. And the guidelines of the, I hope I'm still on here, the guidelines for the blended model, but and its definition merit the reduction of the number of the students in the building in order to afford social distancing. That's what the moderate risk level that Blair County is in right now indicates that it requires. So the question is, does your exposure increase or decrease if you disregard that recommendation? The answer is it's going to increase. What the ultimate result is, we can't tell you. What I doubt you'd have personal liability, but you can see legal exposure for the school district saying you disregarded the recommendation, you had us all come back, and then we had an outbreak. And that's not just exposure from students and parents, it's exposure from staff members as well.
But didn't we have a blended by having virtual and in-house?
The definition of blended that came out on Monday is a model that involves some degree of reduction of the number of students in the building that results in enabling 6 feet of social distancing. And that can be the scaffolding, it can be A and B hybrid back and forth, which Hollidaysburg did, and it can be what you had approved, which is again reducing some mandating that some go virtual and then spreading the students out. An example would be if you had your prior model had some of the kids out due to the building project, but it didn't spread anybody else out from the other buildings. So we wouldn't have satisfied the blended model that was defined on Monday.
But we did have a virtual option. So we had 3/4 of the kids wanting to come back to school with 25% of the kids wanting to learn virtually. So we did technically have options of a blended model, correct? Or no?
Sure, you did have options of a blended model, but it would have been, and again, this came out Monday. So at the time you were doing it, nobody necessarily knew, but you would be looking at whether those numbers then facilitated you reducing the number of students in the classrooms to enable 6 feet of social distancing. And the 6 feet of social distancing is required when they have any face covering break. And when that's required, it's defined as occurring when they're like in their seated workspaces 6 feet apart. So I don't know whether your percentages that you just described would have enabled you to spread kids out of the classrooms and have less kids in the classrooms as you've described this evening to enable 6 feet.
Right. And we don't know either. I mean, it kind of depends on the grade levels and that sort of things.
The other options were what they presented was in the original.
Right.
One that was not an option. correct?
Correct.
The hybrid or
The
specific
hybrid-
blended
the
model.
hybrid was- The blended was not an option. You had two options. You had full bore or with the fast.
Right.
So I have a question. If a student that is playing sports or in the band contacts COVID, do we have to shut down the school?
No, we would be shutting down that activity, or we would be doing contact tracing based on that activity and that child.
They won't be
We-
in school, so there'd
Yeah,
be
it's
no
right now, it's
reason.
not in school, so we wouldn't have the contacts that we would have. Let's just say a kid in band is sick and they're in the middle of the building and there's 1,800 kids in the building. Yes, now you have contact tracing because that child can impact almost, hundreds of kids. Whereas at band, they interact with that group of children. At football, they interact with that group of children.
They also had brothers and sisters.
So what,
They're in elementary, they come to school. So
what if a student
There's no right
coming to
answer.
school comes down with it? Do we have to shut down our athletics and our band and all of that?
Well, if I shut down the school, then I'm shutting down my athletics and band. I mean, if we're in a situation where we're going to go virtual for 2 days, because that means we're now in a situation where we're doing some form of quarantine, no matter what the length is. We talk about safe practices and to be when I have someone who may have been exposed, but doesn't truly fall into the CDC guidelines that they have to be quarantined, then we discuss what were behaviors, what was the situation. Okay, I've had people work from home, and I've had people basically distance themselves, mask, etc., for a certain period of time until we had to report back whether the person they came in contact with was COVID or not. So we've gone through that process.
One last thing. We're saying that we're doing this for 9 weeks. We're setting an arbitrary date when we're going to take a look at this. What if, and I pray to God, this is what happens, the kids come back and we don't have cases and things are going well. Why would we wait 9 weeks to bring the rest of them back?
The issue comes down to is you're preparing your building system to run for 9 weeks to get us, and then at the end of that point in time, we're not going to know in mid-September that it's going to be safe to come back in October. We may know first couple of weeks in October that it's going to be safe to come back in November. I mean, we're only talking right now. It's mid-August. We bring the kids back the 8th of September. A week or two later, we have a meeting and we say we can bring them back. We're not going to know enough. There's not going to be enough information. Whereas going to mid-October is going to give us the ability. Okay, we can do this. We're going to be fine. We can bring them all back in at the end of the 9 weeks. So they'll all be back in the building November 5th, 6th, or whatever the date is. I can't remember on the calendar. You can't turn it around that fast. And that was one of the reasons that I had issues with bringing them back and then if we have cases, having to basically send them home, bring them back, send them home, bring them back, because the disruptions there would just bring the educational process to a halt.
Why didn't we offer the blended model like the other districts are doing?
The decision was that was going to be the most disruptive parents into the community, because you've got 2 days in, one day with no one, and 2 days out.
It just seems like most of the other districts are doing that. That's just what I was asking. Okay.
We'd have a motion on the floor.
So if the motion's going to stay on the floor, I would like to point out that on August 3rd, we passed a resolution that said that if there was a surge in COVID cases, that we would, all the stipends, extra duty stipends for activities that would be canceled as a result would not be paid. So are we opening ourselves up by, if we take a vote and say, get rid of all the activities, that wasn't COVID doing it, that's us eliminating it. And then are we open to grievances? Because we already passed a resolution that said we wouldn't pay them if it's a COVID outbreak, but this isn't an outbreak. This is just shutting everything down, the board's decision. I don't disagree with that, Dave. My question is the financial ramifications. If that opens us up for grievances because it wasn't COVID that did it, it was us.
Do you think we could table this? Because I really think that we need public comment, and I think we probably need Phil here too
If somebody
to
would pull-
help
we'd have
us
to
make
pull
this
it, right?
decision.
You'd have to-
Well, they would table it.
They would
It's
table
not
it.
my motion.
Yes, because that people can call in now is not going to work because a lot of people probably logged off a long time ago.
Well, I mean, and I think it's imperative that we have the athletic director here to speak on behalf of it.
We can move 3.02. We can just put that on Monday's agenda.
But the motion that's on the table has not been withdrawn.
Right.
It's either withdraw the motion or table it. Right.
A motion, if someone makes a motion to table, it supersedes the pending motion and you have to vote on the motion to table immediately, and then that'll resolve the pending motion.
I move forward to table this.
The second has to withdraw the second. That's a protocol. If the second withdraws,
Withdraw it, Ron.
then the motion's done.
Withdraw your motion, Ron.
If nobody else seconds, the motion's dead.
Withdraw your second motion
Okay.
if you want to.
Okay, I withdraw.
It's dead. So the motion is off the table right now. He withdrew his second.
Or do we still need to table it?
I think we still need to table it since it's on the, yeah,
I make a motion to table it.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving right along.
That's it.
So we're 302, we're not dealing with.
Well, 302 is revision of the athletic plan, which I think the motion is that we just tabled.
Is
Take care of that.
Super, yeah, is that.
Okay. Then anything else for the good of the order? Meeting adjourned at 9:57 PM.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Everybody.